Shubprabhat, Sakal, good morning, Shubho Sakal. Sorry, thank you. Shubho Sakal, Shubprabhat. Welcome back to the second day of the training program. So, as you had got an idea that yesterday the first session revolved around influence processes inspired from Professor Sunny's work and research in this area. Going ahead in the same manner, today we are going to focus on his another contribution, another chapter which is around intellectual revolutions. So, yeah. So, as the topic is intellectual revolutions, can we just briefly think of what do you think is intellectual revolutions about? Any guesses would also be okay. What are intellectual revolutions?
Renaissance. Renaissance.
Okay.
It's like accumulating knowledge to the next generation from generation.
Okay. So knowledge is a key word. Okay. Anything else?
Mental growth.
Okay. Very good.
Mental development.
Okay. So this also brings us to another important question. Why do we think revolutions are needed? Do we first think that revolutions are the need of the society? Why are the revolutions needed at the first place? So I think, maybe as a disclaimer, when we talk about revolutions, most of the time we talk about positive, transformative change only. But as the history has, showed us, it is evident from the history that many a times because of revolution, some negative repercussions, violence also happens, right? So we are, what we are focusing here is on positive changes which this kind of, and therefore intellectual revolutions which brings into society, but not in any way promoting violence or war or etc. because we are here, promoting peace and equality and access to justice through the non-violent manner. So this wants us to focus on why are the revolutions needed, what changes have they made in our society, why they are the need of the contemporary society which we are part of. If we feel at all that this is the need of the today's times. So as the slide show, revolutions are need of the growing society. Maybe because to start with, we can say they have a deep meaning, suggesting that revolutionary change can be a natural and even necessary consequence of a social progress. So, as our friend rightly pointed out, as we progress as a society, there are certain changes which it demands, like our laws, right? Like we still say that we are following the British era laws till today, the old colonial obsolete laws and all of those things. And time again, we have been, made this to realize that with the changing society, changing times, the needs also needs to our laws also needs to be looked back. So that's how we say that. Probably in connection to that, we can say that as the society evolves, as we evolve, like there was sati pratha, or there was no concept of widow remarriage, and things like that. So we see how with the time it was considered as an important aspect, which was further enhancing the inequality in the society on the basis of gender and all, and therefore a change was required. And we know that the revolution, because of certain revolutionist activists took place, and we see the change what we have in our today's society. So therefore, as the society progress, as the social progress occur, revolution also becomes an important part. It also highlights the potential role of revolutionary change in addressing the needs of evolving societies and paving the way for a more just and equitable future. As I said, because when we analyze, we realize, like yesterday, we said that recognizing a problem as a legal problem, and then working towards it is very important. Like in India, currently there was a lot of discussion around marital rape and all, right? So still we are struggling with that. We are not sure whether to, consider that in this way, because we consider marriage as a very sacrosanct and all of that process, etc. And what would be even the negative consequences of it, if so happens. So the kind of societal structure we have, and the way the society is evolving, and if we are talking about equality and justice, there are certain questions which as a society we confront with again and again. So this shows us that it's not a simple equation. It's a very complex process. So there are certain important caveats which comes into the picture over here, which includes that while this statement revolutions are the needs of the society is reflected here, but it also implies a natural progression, as revolutions are complex events with multifaceted causes and consequences. They can be messy and violent, as I said, with unintended outcomes and long-term challenges. And again, we don't need to point out specific instances for that matter, but we know that certain revolutions in the past, which were for the good of course, but they may have their own unintended consequences as well. So this statement shouldn't be interpreted as advocating for revolution as the only means of societal progress. Peaceful reforms and gradual change can also address societal needs. So this is what also is the underlying thing, because the speaker after me is basically importantly going to emphasize on peace and mediation. Therefore, I felt it's important to put revolution in a right frame so that we know both the positives and negative aspects of it. So here are certain examples like 1971 Bangladeshi Liberation War, Indian Independence Movement, French Revolution, American Revolution, etc. So we all know the positive and the negative aspects which come with any kind of revolutions, may it be at that point of time or maybe at the later point of time. Yes.
सर कैन जस्ट बी रिमूव उसमें दिख रहा है क्या कैंसिल का कुछ ऑप्शन है उसमें कुछ ऐसे नहीं इसमें नीचे ला सकते हैं ये
Going into the definition of intellectual revolution, we define it as the result of, something intelligence and intellectual nature to question existing belief systems, thoughts, ideas, customs, conventions, traditions, and way of functioning. So in the beginning, when I asked this, some of you pointed out towards this. The terms might have been different, but that is how we see, or in a very layman language, we define what is intellectual revolution. Maybe something which is coming from a change in the perspective, what was considered right some 10 years ago, 20, 50 years ago, might not be seen in the same perspective today, right? There are many, many examples for that. At some point of time wherein child marriage was considered as the need of the society, today we are more advanced in terms of not understanding its social consequences, but also the physical, sexual and reproductive health rights, and many, many more things, education for that matter. So what might have been appeared right as part of our history might not be in the same sense applicable in today's times, and therefore we see that there is a change in perspective. And how does that change in perspective come is basically what we call as intellectual revolution, which we never questioned earlier, but now we are questioning in the right sense, to understand what is the logic behind it, what is the science behind it, why is somebody made to do like this, what were the reasons then, and why we need to question them now, and how are they confronting our growth and development, which is very important. Not just questioning something because question like a toddler who is curious about everything and want to trouble parents asking why in any and every answer. But it's about going beyond that, knowing the reason, knowing the logic, knowing the science, even the art behind it, right? So that is important, because I always say that there has to be an art in doing things, because science is everywhere. But in Hindi we say कि यही तो कला है, बाकी सब तो विज्ञान है, right? So science is everywhere, but how do we use it is actually a skill. That is what is an important part of intellectual revolution, and that is basically the idea of it, to bring about a positive change, maybe in terms of change in perspective, in terms of change in, like we say, the kind of glass we wear. So if I'm wearing a photochromatic glass, even if I'm standing outside in a very sunny day, I might say that, there are clouds today because my glass is photochromatic. It becomes black. So we are not saying that we are not talking about reality, but it's like what glass we are wearing. And sometimes we need to change the perspective, specifically as part of the profession we are part of, because that's how empathy, justice, equality might come into the picture. Until and unless we understand that perspective from different point of view, probably we might not be able to truly understand in the whole sense what the problem is all about. So intellectual revolutions lead to a new discoveries or the rejection of old age practices. They also benefit the individual and the society, right? I hope all of us agree with this, and we are on the same page until now. Yes, sir. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm not going to dwell in detail in this. The reason being the font is very small, even I cannot read it because I'm not near to the computer. But anyways, I didn't want it to bore you in the first lecture with a lot of history and pointing out the facts and figures and who were the proponents of it. I believe we all are intellectual people and we have access to, and of course I'll request sir to share the slides with you and the reading material so that those of you who are interested to look into it, you can go in more depth of it. But the basic objective of this slide was to actually take you through the different periods in which specifically we see examples of intellectual revolutions, right? Like starting with scientific revolution from 16th and 18th century to the postmodernism, or maybe before that the rise of feminism and postmodernism, and finally, as our friend pointed out today, artificial intelligence. So in many ways we are also now talking about digital revolution, right? I think when I was in school, computers were introduced. That was a very new technology, and now for our kids, no matter they are 4 years or 2 years, they know how to do all these things. So if you get stuck, they are there to help you, even at that tender age. So we see digital revolution also in that way, of course, coming up as the need of the society, right? Maybe 10 years before, that was not never considered. So we don't know what we are talking today as the future is tomorrow only going to become today, right? That happens in many ways. We have not, imagined of electric vehicles some, decades ago, but they were the future, and now they are the reality, right? So the whole point is that society is so dynamic, so is the law, should be ideally, right? And because society is so dynamic, things are so much changing fast that we don't know what we are talking about as future is our today, tomorrow itself, right? So that's how we need to. That is also something which points towards understanding the importance of intellectual revolutions, because without understanding them, we would again be, somewhere taking a step back to understand how things are changing and why we need to change as a society as well, right? Like, when we talked about criminal justice and all of those things, we started off with the need of imprisonment, why prisons were considered as the need. Like we questioned why there is a need of intellectual revolution. So probably when we started with the concept of this jail, confinement, and all, the concept might have been very different. But today we are questioning that concept because of many other things which we see are a part of the changing society, which we see should be a part of the criminal justice system. Maybe in terms of reformation, not that considering a person versus the state, but how can we reform? How can we bring a change? And that's I think nothing but a very good example of the intellectual revolution which we are talking about, right? Where also mediation comes into the picture, because then and there only we will be able to justify why mediation is also the need of the hour, even in cases or contexts like this. Yes, sir. Please, next slide. Yeah, so some of the examples or the key features, we may say, of the intellectual revolutions which we need to understand when we are talking about this thing is that they basically challenge the existing ideas because they are typically involving a challenge to establish knowledge, theories, and ways of thinking. Right? Uh, in the in today morning only we were talking about the whole process of pursuing PhD. How many of you are aspiring for a PhD? Okay. So the scope for intellectual revolution has been limited as of now. Okay. I'm not claiming that PhD bring any intellectual revolution in an academic sense, but yes. So why I mentioned PhD because it is the process in which we assume, or ideally we take it as a process in which we read a lot of theories, raise a lot of questions, pick up one particular theory, and make an attempt to prove it right or wrong. Am I right?
Yes.
Means if we have a
Yes.
basic, go by the basic understanding of it, that is what we are supposed to do, right? So that's why we say that any such things are basically the feature of intellectual revolution would be to challenge the existing idea and find out a way ahead. Then, of course, emergence of new ideas. They are characterized by the emergence of new and innovative ideas, concepts, and perspectives. So, in today's time, we are talking more about models, frameworks, tools, and all of those things. So, these are nothing but the new ways of looking at things and finding out a possible way ahead. Then, they may have widespread impact. They were because they help us in shaping intellectual discourse and influencing broader social and cultural landscape. Can there be a good example to understand this? That if there is any revolution which has had a widespread impact in terms of shaping the intellectual discourse and influencing the broader social and cultural landscape. Can we think of an example?
The foreign culture that we adopt, maybe.
Okay.
I mean, we always say that our culture is not focused right now. We only following USA or something like
Okay.
that.
Westernization happening.
Exactly, that's the word.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Any other? It's a good example because socially, culturally, in all the ways it is affecting the way we have been looking at things.
Exactly.
And now how, on the name of progressive society,
Exactly.
we are understanding and changing our perspective. Of course, there are again intellectual revolutions happening, going back to the roots
Exactly.
simultaneously,
Exactly.
I think a parallel, revolution which is taking place. That why, even after so much of westernizing ourselves and adopting the things which Western has imposed on us, but understanding our own culture and how simultaneously, of course, with the progressive mindsets, how are we going back to them? So that is a kind of intellectual revolution, actually. What else? In terms of law and society, something? Any revolution or anything which you think has a very wider impact?
13th century Renaissance.
Okay. These are some of the very important and significant events in the history which have actually resulted into a change. All right. So this is also how we think. Like I know, if I'm right, I know in certain cultures pursuing law was not allowed. It was considered as if you are questioning. So certain cultures doesn't allow a person to be a judge because it is considered that Almighty is the only judge, right? And a person cannot, uh, you know, give verdicts like death sentence or something like that. So you cannot replace that supreme power, and therefore, this was questioned that pursuing law was allowed or not. Maybe in terms of gender also, there were certain restrictions, and there are mindset restrictions around it. But we see that slowly, with the time, the things have been evolving, and people have. So why we call it a revolution? Because even when such mindsets prevailed, some persons have dared to pursue that field and prove that we need to go beyond those traditional concepts or conventions of ours, and because it's the need of the society, or maybe a profession through which we are actually serving the society or serving the people. Okay, then it's a continuous process. There are new ideas and challenges constantly emerging, prompting further questions and re-evolution of established knowledge. So this is also important because every time we talk about innovation, new idea, so again, it's like, I said, we may be talking about a certain technology which is a future today, but tomorrow it might be a reality. So similarly, every idea becomes obsolete, however new it is. And therefore, as I said, there is a parallel stream going on of going back to the roots. Similarly, in terms of innovations also, we are talking about, alternative pathways. So not just looking from one particular perspective. Like nowadays, there was a time when we felt that education is the best solution for every problem in the society. But with the time, even in the crime for that matter, now can we claim that educated people do not do crime? They are very ethical people? No. Right, so time has proved us wrong in certain manners. Of course, education helps, but it's not the only solution. So that's a kind of intellectual revolution which has happened. Now we cannot say that, working on education is going to solve the problem of livelihood, solve the problem of malnutrition, solve the problem of crime in the society, blah, blah, blah. No more. So that's how we see that change comes. And now probably we need to work on things simultaneously with more cooperation, with more integration and more holistic approach. So that's a kind of intellectual revolution. Now we can even argue that, without a secure source of livelihood, how can a person even think about, education or sending their child for education? So maybe livelihood is now considered as the primary goal or something like that. But even if we go into depth of it, probably I believe if a person is undernourished, unfortunately, my country is one which is having highest number of deaths among undernourished children under 6 years, which is like preventable thing. I believe it's a very much preventable thing. But still, if we are not able to contribute to that, and we are allowing our young ones, to just we are allowing ourselves to lose them, which we consider as the future of our country. Nothing can be more unfortunate than that, right? So that tells us. So if we go in depth, that tells us that our mindsets change. You can't say that the person, if you have given them livelihood, they will have a good balanced diet and they'll address undernutrition and the problems will be solved. No, then probably you get into a circle. So it's a circle which tells us that things are very much interrelated. Working in silos is not going to happen, right? And I think today, going ahead, we will be talking about some such interesting ideas around circles as well, which again tells us that by looking things comprehensively in a holistic manner helps, and that's a kind of an intellectual revolution. So there are certain questions like, if you could spark your own intellectual revolution, what would it focus on? What lasting impact would you hope it would have? And what societal norms or assumptions would you challenge? Or given the rapid pace of technological advancement, is the human mind in danger of being outspaced by the very tools it created? How can we ensure that future intellectual revolutions prioritize human values and well-being in the face of the technological change? Right? Like we were talking about AI. We know one of the very direct consequence which we have observed. I know about India, certain companies like Tata Consultancy and all. The first question which came was there was a lot of laid-off which happened. As soon as these companies adopted a ChatGPT or certain things, because they had the power to do this coding or whatever process. Work of 100 people, one AI could do, right? So that was a huge, disruption. That how are things? Because already COVID had struck, and we have seen on the name of COVID, many laydowns have happened. It was taken as an opportunity to lay off people, which the companies thought were not contributing or were not required, quote unquote, not going into the reasons of it. But then gradually we are so these questions came, right? That the positions like data analyst and decoding and all of this, will they have no value? Even content writing, for that matter. But now, with the time, we are realizing that even though we are, or the companies are claiming that one person can do the work of 100 people with the use of these advancing technologies, which is an intellectual revolution. But the matter of the fact is that 100 people are required to manage that software, right? You need a team to see that it works well, that there are no, pitfalls within it. So that is also something, because otherwise there would be a lot of resistance. So we don't know if the market is playing its role, or what is the reality of it. So that's how we get into intellectual revolutions, by questioning things, and not by just simply questioning things, but going into the depth of it, that we understand it's a need of the hour, but what would be the consequences of it? And simultaneously, if we do not adopt it, as we said, Western world is adopting it, the world is experimenting with it. And if our universities or systems are shutting us out with such revolutions, maybe we or our children are going to say that we don't have future here, right? Which is also happening. Most of the times we feel that we should go out, right? So that is also an important question to reflect. Next slide. So what are the prerequisites for creating intellectual revolutions? First is consideration, where we should consider the existing intellectual status of the listener, or responsiveness to the new thoughts or ideas. So Professor Sunny highlights some of the very important areas where, as a leader, as a speaker, or as an influencer, you may focus upon. So first is looking into the existing intellectual status of who the listeners are, and responsiveness to the new thoughts or ideas. And again, I think many factors: social, cultural, age. Because like I had worked in India with an organization who was working on leadership of head teachers, the main head of the schools setups, government school setups. So first intellectual revolution, I believe, came by experimenting with the word that we used to call headmasters. So we questioned, why only headmasters? There could be headmistress also. So let's go some gender neutral, and we said head teachers, right? Like, we don't say man-made disasters now, otherwise. Acha.
It is.
No, we say it human disasters now. Anyway, man is there in human as well.
Most contribution.
But man is not in terms of gender or sex, but it's in more in terms. So right, and therefore, this is also a very intellectual revolution. Similarly, we don't. So there is a campaign which even I am part of and promoting, is now we don't no more call natural disasters. Because we understand that human is inducing. I'm not saying man is inducing. So human is inducing. So there could be a hazard already. There could be hazards which could be natural, right? No arguments on that. But until and unless you are exposed, or you are in a vulnerable position, you means society or anybody, any group or community. I don't want it to create a scene of disaster here. So that's how probably we start. So a very good initiative in this context has been done recently in India. Honorable Supreme Court has come up with a handbook, which has just worked on certain such terms, right? Like, there was a lot of discussion around things like, we call it sex workers or something, but they call it that we might, rather call them victims of human trafficking, or certain things like that. Because the moment through the terminology we validate them, we are actually, right, unconsciously, we are including them in the employment workforce by saying them, using a particular term. But simultaneously, if we are concerned about their human rights, more concerned about humanitarian laws and all, we need to look into the kind of terminologies which we are using, and they should be dignified. Like, nowadays we also focus upon saying not anymore victims, like acid attack victims. Rather, we prefer saying acid attack survivors. It's more empowering, right? So, like, there is a change coming, and we are not saying any more that a blind person or a deaf person. We should, and it's not just because we are trying to play around with the realities, but it's like what position and place we place the other person in. If I say, um, I am, I am blind, I'm actually questioning me, I, or the other person. But if I say that somebody has a visual impairment, impairment in the sense which is creating a hurdle in terms of some certain ability, day-to-day work which we in another way do. Simultaneously, it's very important to note and not say normal versus disabled person. What is normal? I think with glass also I can't say I am a normal person. So that kind of differences unconsciously, intellectually, we create in the society. They go deep somewhere, and therefore it could be person with disability or person without disability, not person disabled person or normal person, which is very crucial. And I think the language of the law is something which can take care of these things in a larger manner. So I believe that could also be a very good intellectual revolution from today itself, that whatever we write, whatever we speak, specifically when we are with intellectual peoples around where we know that there are certain kind of influences taking place. It's not that just because I'm standing on the other side I have the ability to influence you. In many many ways you have influenced me, right? It may be direct, it may be indirect, maybe verbal, it may be non-verbal, or anyways. So if we from today itself start taking care of even this small thing, gender neutral words, or the words which does not place the other person in a disempowering or unworthy situation. When you say somebody is disabled, you are actually placing them in a situation which in itself contains that feeling that they do not have the ability. So rather, similarly, survivors instead of victims, because you want them to look ahead. You want your system to work ahead, not just keep them considering whole of the life as a victim, which is not empowering. Empowering would be to telling them that they had that courage, that agility, that resilience, to come out of that what has happened and move ahead in life. So that's also a kind of intellectual revolution which I believe we can start from right now. Open-mindedness, of course. The listener should be open-minded and curious about the new thoughts or ideas. Awareness, we know, is always a significant aspect. Speakers should be aware of the impact of the new thoughts or ideas on the existing ones in the listener's mind. So I was aware that if I say man-made disaster or something else, it would spark. So that's how, because we are with a group wherein we can actually think about these things, not taking them in a other manner, etc. Engagement, the listener should be willing to engage in a skirmish in the mind and reject or embrace the new thoughts or ideas. So this is also very important. We can't expect our audience always to be very obedient. What you say, they follow that. That's not the whole purpose.
Exactly.
I think the purpose of my lecture should be that at the end you agree to disagree, or at least you go with a question in your mind. No matter I have the answer to that or not, or your other intellectual friends have the answer to that or not. But if you are left with one such thought, which you are taking away with yourself, then probably that's the whole point which we see as a success. So how to create intellectual revolutions? Be curious and critical of the world around you. Be resilient and adaptable to change, which is very important, and it is something, which we never talk about. I think these are the life skills which should be first part of our, lessons or curriculums. So we always talk about, success stories, best practices, but it is important to know that Einstein failed 100 times, right? It is important, and failure is not the end of the thing, which we don't talk with our kids even. We just want them to be doing best in their life, no matter what we have done. But we want them to be, always ahead. But I think it's more important to talk about failures, to talk about such failed stories. What does not work, knowing that, I believe, is very important. And that is actually the beginning of the intellectual revolution as well, right? So therefore, and brings in the resilience and adaptability to change. Inspire and persuade others to join your cause. Seek evidence and logic to support your arguments. This is very important, and as a lawyer, I believe this is one of the skill which is often focused upon. That you should always have, such data, such knowledge, such backup, which supports you or the logic of your arguments. Communicate and collaborate with others who share your vision. Last but very, very important is this. You know, no more, as I said, like there could not be solution in a silos. Similarly, we can't grow in silos. We need team.
Yes.
And more than competition, it has to be cooperation now. We know probably we can work far more better, and in a more healthier manner if we work together. Yes, please, sir. So again, certain questions to introspect for ourselves, like to what extent what have the intellectual revolutions have learned about today, shaped your own worldview and values? How do you see yourself contributing to or participating in future intellectual movements? If anybody would like to answer there, they can please do so. I'm not going to force you to speak if you're not willing. Like, because yesterday only I talked about willing and unwilling participation, right? And then imagine stepping back in time to meet one of the key figures you discussed in your lecture, and what questions would you ask them and why? Right? Like yesterday also, we talked about Renaissance, or we talked about Che Guevara, or we talked about Greta, or father of the nation, and all of them. So any key figures, if they were today, like we often question that, if Gandhi would have lived, if he would have not been assassinated just 2 years after independence, were there any other things which would have changed? Or what would have been his world, his views on a particular issue or something, right? So these are the questions we should ask, and why was that considered important at that point of time, and how today's time and context would have influenced that. Consider the following statement: every generation needs its own revolution. Do you agree or disagree? Agree. Okay. So why or why not, and what are the benefits and drawbacks of continuous intellectual revolution? So again, like in the beginning, we said that revolution can have its own intended and unintended consequences, short-term and long-term consequences. So even questioning, not considering something as just the need of the hour or something which will, I see in my students, they feel that this is very cool, quote unquote, if you go ahead with some particular ideology. So they feel like, okay, I should not use those words. That if I'm a leftist, or something like that, you sound very cool, talking. So we see that kind of, what do we say, opinions existing in parts, because like in today's time, if we say that I'm pursuing law, it would be seen as a very, reputable thing, which was not the case when our parents were pursuing law, right? I have heard from my family members that when there was nothing else, they considered going ahead with this. It could be an unfortunate reality, but it was at that point of time. But today, no more the scenario is same. So we see that change happening. So it has its own benefits and drawbacks. So next slide, please. So then here we talk about cognition in mental. How much time do I have? So in intellectual revolution, there are certain terms which are very important. One is cognition. What is cognition? It's an human. So Professor Sunny highlight it as a very important human resource which comes into the picture when we talk about intellectual revolution. It consists of 3 concepts which we will talk about. And cognition is influenced by brain, body, food, and the environment. Right? All your thoughts, feelings, actions are part of it. We say that we should always mind our words mind our thoughts, because they lead to the creation of words, and that leads us to take particular action. So We can't say that I was thinking something else, I said something else, and I did was something else. It cannot be like that. That's why when we talk about leadership, when we talk about positive influencing, we always focus on what kind of thoughts, you know, are coming up, which would result into the kind of words we select and the kind of actions we take. Yes, sir. So yes, I said three components of cognition. They are intelligence, intellectual nature, and influence processes, which we had influence processes specifically yesterday's session focused upon. But intelligence, we know the ability to acquire and apply our knowledge and skills. So there is a difference in, I say दिमाग होना और दिमाग का use करना. So everybody of us have brain, but how many are using it is the whole difference. The art and the science, I said, that's an art, right? Science is everywhere. Our brain know this is logical or not logical, but so remember that दिमाग होना और दिमाग का use करना are two different things, right? So that's why we say acquiring knowledge and applying knowledge and skills, and that's where we criticize our existing education system as well, wherein we just believe in, there is a book of Paulo Freire, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. Very nice book. I mean, for an intellectual revolutionist, it is something which is must read. It talks about banking system of education. What happens in the bank? We go and the banker is supposed to give us the money, and there is no conversation happening, right? Same is in the education system. The person on the other side, just because of few degrees like me, or some privileges of having the opportunity to know sir and all of those things, just because somebody is standing on the other side, the group is supposed to be listening it and following it. That's how education system has worked. That's how we know Britishers have instilled that within our system, and that's why we still call it that legacy of sir and madam and all of those things. So Paulo Freire talks about this in context of education and says that it has to be a two-way process. It cannot be something which is just getting delivered from one side and getting absorbed by the another side. Until and unless the other group is reflecting, questioning, introspecting, thinking about it, there is no point of education. So that's how we talk about bridging the gap between theory and practice, and that is all the difference which we see. Then there are other mental abilities like learning, reasoning, problem solving, critical thinking, memory application, etc., which we know our competitive exams are very good at, and they assess us all on all of these things only. But now we talk about IQ, EI, multiple intelligence, and all of those things. Now the side effect is everybody is expected to be everything. I have to be a teacher, I have to be a researcher, I have to be an administrator, writer, reflector, good speaker, leader, what all, I don't know. So that's the expectation of my director from me. And if not, then it would be you are invisible, right? I believe I can be a good teacher. I might not be a very good researcher simultaneously. It's not important. Though I'm not saying that research does not contribute to teaching. It does, of course, it has an important role to play. But what kind of research at the universities we are doing is again something which we need to question, which should be actually contributing to the lessons or the way I communicate with my students, right? So, yes, that is important. And then intellectual nature is somewhat ambiguous and might have different interpretations depending on the context. It could refer to someone's natural inclination towards intellectual pursuits, curiosity, and love for learning. It could be also signifying someone's characteristics, way of thinking, their cognitive style, preferred approach to understanding and engaging with ideas. So, yes, next slide. So we know there are few people, sometimes we may get irritated, but we know, arey, ye aa gaya, now only questions would be there. That happens, right? That person became a scapegoat for everybody. Or many times in the class we see that if he is there, now we don't need to speak. She is going to participate and take the charge of everybody in the class, and we can be relaxed now. That happens, right? So this is also how we see that you know, the things evolve. And then we talk, so very important after talking about all of those things that we connect the dots here. You know, what we understood yesterday, you know, influence processes, uh, emotional intelligence, theory of mind, and all of those things, and what we talked about today in terms of intellectual revolution. So we know now one is for sure art and science. Second is, you know, the kind of language we use, and third, the language should be empowering always, and of course having brain and using it. So that brings us to this, that intelligence plays a crucial role in influence processes, because you know, if you consider other person as having some knowledge about the, you know, content which they are presenting, then it makes a difference, because it provides the cognitive abilities necessary to understand others, analyze situations, and formulate effective strategies. This is what is going to help you a lot in the mediation process as well, right? Then, however, we know intellectual nature goes beyond simple intelligence. It can involve factors like passion, creativity, openness to new ideas, and intrinsic desire to engage with the world intellectually. How many of you have, how many of you sometimes feel that, you know, I have arranged my desk in the same way, you know, I need to change this. I need to change something in the room, you know, which was same. How many of you feel that urge?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Yeah. Why does that urge comes? Why don't we like the things always in the same way? It should be here. It should be here. And so I'm comfortable using that. Why do I need to think about changing it? What difference does it make? Looks, okay.
Memories.
Memories, okay.
Sometimes changes gives freshness.
Okay. So many a times we do that, you know, and that's why my friends call me, you have obsessive compulsive disorder. So that also happen when people are more intellectually revolutionized. So that's how we see that, you know, it goes beyond simple intelligence, and a lot of passion, creativity also comes along when we try to do things in different manner and apply intellectual or intelligence in the intellect and intelligence in that. Understanding influence processes can be beneficial for navigating, of course, social interactions, communications, and leadership situations. Then we talk about another concept apart from cognition is mentalizing, which is not visible because of this installation. So mentalizing is the process of reflecting on the impressions of an experience and evaluating their worth and impact on the mind. You know, so as I said, you know, if you get the opportunity to meet one of the figures which we were talking about, you know, what questions we would ask them. You know? So maybe that is a process through which we are mentalizing, creating a frame, and trying to understand how things might have changed now, and what impact do they have on the mind of others. You know, like you know, when I read on leadership, I was surprised to see that it's um, I don't know how to put it, but it's like we always see Mahatma Gandhi as the leader of the national movement. Though we know there were many, many others, you know, countless numbers, but it does not mean that we cannot give them the recognition which is due to them, right? Not just going, not just believing that, you know, because there was a particular approach adopted by Gandhiji, he is still known as one of the figures in the world when you talk about independence movement or non-violent movement. But there are others as well, right? So, you know, that's why it's important that we evaluate the influence which, so what was that which has had so much of influence that you don't see others coming on the same, you know, path as the some other might have. So it's the product of intellectual revolution that one goes through, and it leads to a dynamic addition to the contents of the mind. Yes, sir. So, what are the goals and consequences of creating intellectual revolutions through public speeches? So, public speeches is one of the important or key way Professor Sunny has highlighted, which creates intellectual revolutions. So, I think again some of the figures might be crossing our mind when we talk about public speeches, and we know how these public speeches influence. You know, most of the times we see that those who are public speakers, good public speakers for that matter, they have a big, you know, uh, followers, big number of followers and all. आजकल तो Instagram and Twitter and all. So I don't know how many you must be following certain people or not, but we know there are different ways, not just public speech. But here public speech was highlighted. So the speaker should plan for the result of the influence that she may exert on the audience, both individually and collectively. That's very important, and that's why I said knowing your audience is very important and accordingly planning your speech. Some of my friends are given the responsibility for speech today, so maybe that could be one of the important aspect to consider. The speaker should consider the following the possible outcomes of the influence, such as action, knowledge, and idea diffusion. ऐसा नहीं है कि stepping out of the room and we are going to, we have learned something and now we are going to create revolution, right? So it depends, what context, what matter, positive, negative outcome. There could be a right thing, but the approach could be not so right. So therefore, this has to be taken into consideration. The speaker should be conscious of the responsibility and accountability of the influence and be ready to deal with it. This also happens many a times. And then how to enhance the effectiveness of intellectual revolutions by public speech. So again, certain tips. One, speaker should use the platform monologue as a powerful tool to communicate with the audience. Like many of you might be aware or interested in things like theater or skit, which we know at that point of time have played a very crucial role. Even today's times, documentaries, not films or movies we call them, but certain specific social issues, they are used as a platform to create awareness probably. Like I know in one of the state in India, Rajasthan, puppets were used specifically, to aware people or educate people about the negative consequences of child marriage or female feticide, or not just aware, but just to, give that spark that something wrong is going on in the society, and that should be something which is required to be changed. So even using those creative mediums is something which is important. Using the strategies of communication such as clarity, brevity, and relevance. You are talking about something very important, but like storytelling. But storytelling is not in the sense that you just keep on revolving around it, beating around the bush. The audience will sleep, right? So that's why sometimes you have to make them to think, engage with you, think of something different, and you yourself, how are you talking about certain thing, but in a way which does not create that monotony is very important. And that's why we talk about dialogues, not monologues most of the time. Of course, monologues as a creative mediums have also played their own role. We have art movies and all without using words which have created revolution. But being clear, brief and relevant is very important. And also using competence and charisma to persuade and inspire the audience, right? Why do we want to go in the black coat and suits and boots only when we represent our client? That creates another ecosystem altogether, right? As a professional, as your own responsibility, and many more things which comes with the dress. Yeah, professional. So because when you wear this, you just don't wear a costume or something which, but it's like a reflection of what that particular thing belongs to, the responsibility, and many other things which comes with it, right? That's why we feel altogether different when we are a part of certain such fraternity or dress codes, etc. Yes, so next slide, please. So there are certain challenges, of course. The things are not so rosy, as always talked about. Of course, there are certain thorns. Not all listeners are willing to be influenced by the new ideas. We may be like we are made to sit, so therefore we have to listen, or just because somebody else is doing, therefore. So that could also be a biggest challenge at the first place. Not all listeners or audience would be sitting there with the willingness to change. The terms which we talked about yesterday also, willingness and unwillingness. Because we know the moment we step out of this room, we get into the real world, Like what happens when we step out of the law schools and go to the courts. And that's why I believe internships right from the very first year has been made mandatory now, because students feel lost. Though they are having degree from a good reputed institutes and all, but when it comes to reality, dealing with the clients in the real life scenario, that's why we have moot courts now and all of those things to at least in some manner make an attempt to expose you to the real world or the realities. How do you argue, how do you defend, and all of those things, what are the challenges which comes in the way, etc. So the moment we are out of this room, the real life challenges actually starts from there. So therefore, talking about something, we say that talking the show and walking the show. Talking about something might be not that easy, but yes, it requires efforts, of course. But actually implementing it is something which is a major challenge. And so therefore some listeners may have strong convictions about their existing ideas or resist change. To say we were talking about community mediation. So people might agree with it, but simultaneously we have a lot of resistance not because we are not willing to do that maybe, but because we know when we step out in the community, what kind of challenges do we face or are we going to face in reality. So those are certain things which creates mental blockages or sometimes restrictions, sometimes real challenges even to move ahead. And also sometimes the listeners may have different sources and context of their existing ideas and question the credibility of the speaker. My students sit with Google in their hand. Everything for them is Google Baba. We know, earlier when we used to study what professors or teachers used to say, we could have argued with our parents even. My teacher said this, and that has to be true. But now, scene is no more like that. They question you. Which amendment you are talking, ma'am? Which law you are talking. This has been amended. Or, there are others who have worked. So that happens. Right? And therefore, that is also something which creates a lot of difference, because speakers might be coming with their own, background. Not appropriate to say baggages, but they might also be there. So with that, we perceive others, and we might not be very open to at least reflect on what other was trying to say. So both the ways things are important, not just following blindly, and also not believing the speaker, but taking your own time and intellect to reflect upon it. Yes, sir. So there are certain ways to overcome those challenges while creating intellectual revolution, specifically through public speeches. So Professor Sunny talks about that speaker should create an environment in the mind of the listener that is conducive to receiving new ideas. If I start by saying that what I'm going to say is quite revolutionary, but I'm happy if you disagree. So we are here to agree to disagree. I'm not here to bound you with what I am saying or what I believe works. It might not be true for you, but the only thing we can be on same page still with those differences is we are ready to listen, we are ready to explore, we are ready to reflect and introspect for ourselves, right? And believe that there are scopes, there are possibilities. So a speaker should gradually develop the new idea and satisfactory argumentations and evidence to support its acceptance and its implementation. Like I said, malnutrition is a very big issue. But until I say that, unfortunately, thousands and lakhs of our children die under 6. So that emphasized more, right? I could get from your expressions when I said our under 6 years children. So I'm not randomly talking. I'm not saying that above 6 are not important. But we know, what crucial age group I'm talking about. And again emphasizing that it being a preventable disease for that matter, like diarrhea and any other things as well. So that creates a difference. So satisfactory arguments and evidence to support and also to generate acceptance. Speakers should initiate the intellectual revolution by appealing to the intellect and challenging the intelligence of the listener. So this is also one of the way in which we see intellectual revolutions taking place. So finally, we know that what we studied today was not simply an academic exercise, but driven by a passion for a better world. So let us be inspired by the courage and conviction and question the status quo, challenge injustices, and very important, please actively participate in shaping a more just, equitable, and intellectually vibrant future. Thank you very much.
প্রিয় অ্যাক্টিডেট মেডিটার্স বৃন্দ, আমরা ফার্স্ট সেশন যেটা আমরা জানলাম, ক্রিয়েটিভ intellectual revolutions, most important part of the inspiration of species on mediation. এখন আমাদের যে সেশন, সে সেশনটা হচ্ছে পিস রিলেটিং টু কমিউনিকেশন। এই বিষয়টার উপর যিনি আলোকপাত করবেন, মিস্টার বিজয় ভি ভারতীর্য। আর সম্পর্কে বলতে গেলে উনি বিমস ইন্টারন্যাশনাল কোঅর্ডিনেটর এবং গান্ধী ভবনের ডাইরেক্টর এবং পিস অ্যাক্টিভিস্ট। আপনারা ইতিপূর্বে জেনেছেন, আজকে যে বিষয়টি একটু বলতে চাই সেটা হচ্ছে যে বিমস ইন্টারন্যাশনালি কিছু অর্গানাইজেশনের সঙ্গে সংশ্লিষ্ট রয়েছে। তো তাদের সেই অর্গানাইজেশনের সঙ্গে আপনারা নিজেরা সংশ্লিষ্ট হতে পারেন, অথবা আপনারা যদি বিমসকে দায়িত্ব দেন, বিমস আপনাদের মধ্য থেকে ওই সমস্ত অর্গানের সঙ্গে সংশ্লিষ্ট করাতে চায়। তো উনি অর্থাৎ এখন যিনি সেশনটা নিচ্ছেন, বিজয় ভারতীর্য, জয় জগৎ ইন্টারন্যাশনাল একটা অর্গানাইজেশন, সে অর্গানাইজেশনের সঙ্গে উনি সংশ্লিষ্ট রয়েছেন। বিমস তাকে সাপোর্ট করে, বিমস তার সঙ্গে জড়িত আছে। তো আপনারা যারা ইন্টারেস্টেড, অথবা আপনারা যদি বিমসকে দায়িত্ব দেন, আপনাদের মধ্য থেকেই আমরা 9 জনকে নিয়ে আমরা একটা কমিটি করতে চাই। পাশাপাশি আপনারা জেনেছেন আফ্রিকা, এশিয়া আফ্রিকা মিডিয়েশন অ্যাসোসিয়েশন সহ কমিউনিটি মিডিয়েশন সেন্টার এবং ইন্টারন্যাশনালি আরও 12টি অর্গানাইজেশন, ঢাকা, ওয়াশিংটন, ঢাকা, বার্লিন, ঢাকা আফ্রিকা, ঢাকা এশিয়া প্যাসিফিক, ঢাকা স্পেন সহ 18টি অর্গানাইজেশন সঙ্গে আপনারা সংশ্লিষ্ট পারেন অ্যাজ অ্যাক্রিডেট মিডিয়েটার। এখন নেক্সট সেশন উপস্থাপন করছেন মিস্টার বিজয় ভারতীর্য। তার পরিচয়টা ইতিমধ্যে দিয়েছি। উনি ইন্টারন্যাশনাল কোঅর্ডিনেটর অফ বিমস, গান্ধী ভবনের ডাইরেক্টর এবং পিস অ্যাক্টিভিস্ট। Now I am requesting Mr. Bhatirjo to place your presentation, that is peace relating to communication.
Thank you, sir. Jai Jagat. Jai Jagat. Yes. It's a salutation as a victory to the world.
Jai Jagat, sir.
Jai Jagat. As I begin, I realize that for the last yesterday and today, you have been bombarded with so many ideas, in your thoughts, and it has been wonderfully presented by Dr. Purva. And any professor who comes on the stage has a lot of content, and content with more convincingly presented. So she has made my case very easy for me. So before I begin, I would request a 2-minute silence. Silence in a sense, just reflect upon what all things you heard in the last 2 days. Just reflect upon that. And then we'll begin. How do you feel now?
Empowered.
Empowered? Any else? Relaxed? Yes. Oh, I got you.
More at peace.
More at peace. Right. Anybody from back?
So happy. Now ready to listening you
Right.
perfectly.
So, my topic has been peace communication. And yesterday I had a peace and mediation. So I'm going to club both of them. And before I talk, let me make it very clear. I'm not a lawyer. Okay. I'm not a mediator. Okay. And I've been exploring. I'm exploring so many possibilities in life. And mediation came to me in a natural process. I was part of South Asia Peace Alliance, and then when I came in contact with Goswami sir, he proposed this Bangladesh International Mediation Society, and I liked the what you call the concept that Goswami sir is working. In fact, I would say it's a mission-oriented person. I think he's the only person in Bangladesh who's mission-oriented, one target, and that is mediation, nothing else. 24 hours, if you look at his engagement, it's all mediation only. And he likes to encourage younger generation every time. Every time I meet a new persons. So he's collected with so many people. And this is something I think very remarkable. That we have person with that mission. So when I talk today, and when I listen to presentations that Apurva has done, my questions to all of you is, what are things you recollect from her presentation? Anything that striked you? Any phrase, any words that is gone into your heart? What is that? Can anybody have a reflection on that?
Cognition.
Cognition, okay.
दिमाग होना and दिमाग का इस्तेमाल करना two different things.
हिंदी में जल्दी समझ में आ गया. इंटरेस्टिंग है. Communication में, when you talk little bit different language, it makes difference. Like for example, yesterday, I remember the word Ichha Shakti. That has been growing in my mind. Yesterday I could not sleep because all the thoughts were coming in my mind, and many good presentations happened. So I was keeping noting down the points. So Ichha Shakti was one of them. Because I feel that this is the one critical thing in life. Ichha Shakti. Goswami Sir's whole character goes around Ichha Shakti, about mediation. Okay. So what we are passionate about in life is very important. Each one of us has some element. Okay. Each one of us. Okay. Each one is unique. And unique character. How do we think it's important? Let me make two statements and I want to have a reflection on that. What we say, life is very competitive. Competition बहुत है. Isn't it? We have to. All this, the system, education system that Apurva was talking about, it's all about competition. We want to go ahead. We want to be number one. Do you believe in that?
Cooperation.
How many believe in that? It's a competitive world. You have to stand out. You have to win. You have to be first. How many of you believe that? Anybody? Backside? Right. So this is the, what you call, I would say, the wisdom that you have gathered in this 40 years of training. Okay? If anybody still believes that life is a competition, we have to fight, we have to win, that means that mediation is not in your head.
Yes.
Right? So I think this is the first indicator of the success of this training program. So when we say of mediation, and there's other thing which in presentations you have noted, I fully honor Dr. Sunny's research work. It is very extensive. There's so much data and information, everything is there. What do you think is missing?
Thank you.
Anything missing? That might have struck you. There was a chart, if you remember, whereby there was centuries written and what revolutions took place. Isn't it? Century, scientific revolution, this revolution, many revolutions were there. The chart was there. Okay, the year-wise, the decade-wise something was there. The year-wise was there. Okay, or centuries-wise it was there. What was the last century known for? For which revolution? Which made a great impact all over the world.
Communication.
Which revolution?
Technological.
Which would you call truly an intellectual revolution? What was that?
Communication. Collaboration.
It's digitalization. Or
Digital? Okay.
Technological.
Technological, okay. Anybody else?
Internet,
Internet, okay. Anybody else? Computer, mobile.
AI revolution.
Agriculture revolution, okay. Last century, just think of last century.
It's about technology.
It's about technology.
At the time of the world.
1901 to
1900.
the year 2000.
Communication and collaboration through internet or online platform.
Okay.
19.
I'm talking about intellectual revolution. In a real sense. And one person answered the question in history which never happened.
Oh. What? Can you repeat what you said?
There was one revolution which nobody thought would happen. When you talk of revolution,
October.
is it October or November or December?
October.
When we say revolution means, she made a clarification also that the revolution that she's talking about is different.
Oh.
man reaching the moon.
And reaching the moon, okay. Hmm?
We need more hints.
Huh?
Hints.
Hints, okay. We all talk of revolution. And all revolutions are mostly, when you say revolution means the government is very alert. All governments are alert. Okay? That means the government believes if it's a revolution, it has to be violent. revolution.
GPT-4.
Yes.
It has to be violent. Government believes that way. If we talk of revolution anyway, even if the intellectual also, government perceives that it's a revolution is violent. It's anti-government.
ChatGPT.
In many continents, South Asia has a very, what you call a very important contribution to the intellectual revolution. If you look at, we have got lot many things happen in South Asia. You said something.
Gandhiji's
Non-violent revolution.
Yes.
No.
In none of the
All
slides it
Asia
presented. In the
September
all
goal.
slides presented,
Yes.
non-violent revolution is not mentioned. Why? Because Western nation don't think that non-violent can be a revolution. Okay? Nobody thought. When I think there was Acharya Kripalani. Acharya Kripalani was a professor of history. He went to meet Gandhi. So he was sorry. So he went to meet Gandhi. So he said, Gandhi, in the history, I never seen non-violence revolution taking place. And in the history, nothing is there. Because he was a professor of history. So Gandhi responded that you are the history of professor history. So maybe you will be teaching non-violent history when the chapter comes. So intellectual revolution is all about where there is no academic history about it. Something new happens. And people take note of that. And none of the theories work here. All the theories is good. The theories come only after it happens. Okay? For example, if you look at Bangladesh history in 1971, now it's become a history now. A lot of people research is going on, how it happened, why it happened. Okay, before that nobody thought of it. So the intellectual revolution, which I believe is, it happens through your own understanding of the things, the context that's happening, and you think very creatively. And there are 4 elements to it for the intellectual revolution to take place. Very interesting, which I found was uh, yeah, as a humans, what is our human need?
Peace.
Peace.
Exactly.
Any other word for that?
Happiness.
Happiness. We all, every human being on this earth want happiness. Okay? We are doing everything for happiness only. Okay? If happiness is not there, we will not live. But certain happiness are very short term, some are very long term. Like if you are feeling thirsty, you drink water and you are satisfied. You're hungry, you take food, you're happy. It's a short moment. When we say Nitya Sukh, we call it. Nitya Sukh. The happiness which is
Constant.
constant. Goswami will be not tired 24/7. He's happy all the moment. Right? So all human beings have to have that urge of that continuous happiness in life. What is the one thing that will do that will sustain happiness throughout the life? Irrespective of whatever happens in life. So if you want to have this element, living with pride and human dignity, with self-esteem, that's a human need. What things you should do? There are 4 things about it, 4 elements, very interesting. And there's a Chinese, what do you call, research on this. Chinese, I think, I don't remember the name of the person, in I think the last century. He talks of playful curiosity. Playful creativity and curiosity. In your life, you make it a habit to be creative, innovative in life. That will make you something life worth living. Second element, he urges us to dream. You need to have a dream, a vision. I'm sure in the presentations you might have heard about vision. That vision is important. It could be a collective vision, it could be an individual vision, either way. Unless you have that vision, you will not get charged. The drive energy is not there. Third element is sense of humor. Sense of humor brings, it gives you new energy every time. Okay? Sometimes we are, we get failures in life. But we should know how to take that in a sportsman spirit. Acceptance of failures also, as I think Apurva also mentioned in the speech. Fourth element is breaking the structured patterns in society. Have a little bit of waywardness. Just being obedient is not enough sometimes. Okay? Something unpredictable about your own behavior is important. This will make you life more energetic throughout. Yes. Any questions? Any insight from the 2 days presentations that you gathered? One was on influence, perseverance, and then third was intellectual revolution. Okay. Any thoughts coming from that? Then I put this one challenge to you all. So in my life, I've been experimenting with many ideas all the time, all the movement, whatever things I do. Because I've never taken up any jobs in life. I only work. Okay, I work with different ideas, with different people, with different situations all the time. And the challenge is, we live a life with bundle of contradictions. Every time there's so many contradictions. We are confused with our own ideology sometimes, along with our thoughts and feelings. The gaps in values, assumptions, beliefs, and we hold and what we practice. What we hold and what we practice. We live in a world where there are bombardment of information. Okay? Information is, see, if you Google, a lot of information is coming. With little knowledge and understanding what we really want in our lives. So this element is very important after listening to all the processes, 40 hours of training, and now you're getting active mediators. Important is to do some soul searching. What do we want to do in our lives? Because life is contradictions, it also opens up possibilities. Lots of possibilities are there. We need to understand the human mind, which has a tremendous capacity to come out of situations, provided we trust it. You have to trust yourself. In fact, contradiction tests your own conviction. Whatever convictions you are holding, actually is a test of that. And conviction comes through practice of values and by bringing energy with understanding of ourselves first. Harmony comes when head, heart and hand come together. Coming together gives inner power to face challenges and your conviction grows. So I said coming together gives inner power to face challenges and your conviction grows. Life is all about narrowing the gap between what we believe and what we want to do. Any of you heard of NVC? NVC. Okay, one person is there. Any other? Okay. Please introduce yourself.
I am Aminazi Afroza.
Yeah.
NBC means non-violent communication.
Right.
Thank you.
Right. Non-violent communication. Mediation and NVC go together. It's quite near. So NVC is about practice. To be practitioners of non-violent communication. It's very closely related. I don't have much time to go detail into it, but if you happen to get some opportunity, definitely take up. There are many training programs happening. One training is happening in Bangalore in I think October or so, September, October. It's a 10-day international certified training program on NVC. So if you're interested, I can send you the material. Very interesting, and the international trainer is coming, especially for that. It's a 9-day experiencing program.
In October next year?
This year,
Next year.
next year, yeah. I can, yeah, next year, definitely. I'm sorry, not October, I think it's early, I think. I'll see the dates and give you. So NVC framework, I'll just give brief of that. In NVC, there are two frames of engaging. One is intention and attention. Intention and attention. These are two frames of engaging. There are 3 modes. 2 frames, 3 modes. Connecting with myself, receiving others, and expressing myself. These are 3 modes. 2 frames of engaging. One is intention and attention. 3 modes, that is connecting with myself, receiving others, and expressing myself. 4 key ingredients of the process of NVC is observation, feelings, needs, and request. These are very important 4 ingredients. What they say is share an observation. Okay? We all observe things. So share your observation. Express an actual feeling. You don't need to hide your feelings. This is important. Your honest expression is important. Sometimes we hide our own feelings. We conceal it. Okay? We don't speak to others. Others might feel hurt about it. It happens everywhere. Okay? So how you express your actual feeling is important. The way you do it. And most of the problems in the whole world, anywhere you pick up, here or elsewhere, it's all about your unmet needs. Because your needs are not met, you're taking arms. Because your needs are not met, you're doing corruption. Whatever it is, it's all because your unmet needs are there. The system doesn't allow. Your self revolts against it. Okay? So unmet needs are very important. So you to state your unmet needs. What are the needs? What is your need? Okay? Your inner need is very important. We forget everything. We talk of all materialistic things that we want. But we don't talk about our inner needs. Self-respect, dignity. This is something which every human being wants. But we try to blame others, accuse others. This creates a lot of problems. So one is sharing an observation without judging or comparing. Express an actual feeling. Third is state your unmet need, not assigning any blame to anybody else. Because ultimately you are responsible for yourself. This is very important.
Yeah.
Nobody else is responsible for your thoughts, feelings, anything that you say. You become responsible. In all the mediation cases, you will see the common element. There's a tendency to blame others. I did everything right. The other people was wrong. The victim. We all say we are a victim of that. Actually, it's the... Well, I'll come to that point. There's a very interesting point coming up. So, share an observation, express an actual feeling, state your unmet need. For this, offer a clear request for concrete action. If you make a request, making a request is a practice which NVC encourages. So, these are 4 stages. So, 2 frames, intention and attention, 3 modes, receiving, connecting with myself, receiving others, and expressing myself. And 4th is how to express observation, feelings, needs, and request. And one thing word which Apurva was using often, the word of power. We all talk to powers, no? Where is the power? Any idea? Where is the power? Any idea? Where is the power? Power, you understand, no?
Power lies at the hand of the authority.
Power lies the authority. So authority becomes the power. There's one power. Which is the other power?
Mind.
Hmm?
Our mind.
Our mind. Okay. That's the important thing. We'll come to that again.
Driving force.
Driving force. Power is a driving force. That's very full. That's, I think, a very different angle of looking at power. So power is not outside, normal sense. Power is inside you. Mediation gives you the power, the inner power to negotiate. So unless you empower yourself, you can't negotiate. We forget that. We try to empower others. But before we empower others, it's important to empower ourselves first. The power is with you, with not even a state. That is what Gandhi wrote in Hind Swaraj. That's an intellectual revolution book. Which till now, each word of it, nobody has questioned that. Hind Swaraj. It was written in 1908. And whole life Gandhi fought for that vision of Hind Swaraj. Swaraj is one thing which is what you call critical to human existence. Ruling our own self is important. Governing our own self.
The right to self-determination.
Yes, but that's all has to be understood in proper perspective. So, mediation is the one thing which gives you power. And I definitely feel, with all due respect to High Court and justices that are doing, the system that we have, the judicial system that we have, is going to crumble. It's not going to work. It's almost 100%. Even justice say the same words. Even Indian justice speak the same word. It's not working. Because the system has come, it's a Western system. The model of judicial Western system. We don't have our indigenous system. And mediation is one thing. When it was born, who brought mediation?
Ancestors.
Ancestors. But the conceptual that we're talking now, it came from other side. We didn't believe in our own knowledge systems of justice. In Nepal, in Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, we had a traditional mode of mediation. Okay? But we didn't recognize that. So now we need to have a training program on mediation. So can we go to the roots? So I was talking about the power. The power lies in us. And the very interesting thing about the power, what is empowerment? Power, we are adding the word empower. If your client is empowered, your task is over. Because the power to decide is in the hands of clients, not in your hands, in mediation. You're not really empowering a person for that particular case. It empowers throughout life. It gives a new confidence that I can solve my problems. To solve the problems, we are depending on, a child depends on parents, right? If you go to society, somebody else is deciding, the deciding factor, judging factor is different, somebody else. You always look outside for solving the problem. Somebody else will solve the problem. And that mentality is slavery mentality. We don't have confidence in our own capacity. And we don't, in fact, the system doesn't train young minds into that. That power isn't with you. You can negotiate what you want. So if each citizen of this country is empowered, then we don't need courts at all. There's a system in India, there's a school. It doesn't have any fixed rules. They have changed the rules. There's no punishment in that school. What happens is, if a complaint comes, a child complains, then he has to first talk with friends. With friends to resolve the issue. Because if you have a problem with any particular person, talk to that person. First, that's important. Before complaining to others, talking to that person is important. If your problem doesn't solve, then you go to teacher. And if teacher doesn't solve, then you go to principal. But the thing is, what they have done is, interestingly, they say if you resolve your problem yourself, it's fine, very good. Then you are you're giving the credit, oh, you solved the problem. If you bring to the teacher, your punishment is doubled. And if teacher goes to the principal, again double punishment. So the principal doesn't get complaints down. He's happy.
So tricky problem.
So there are many experiments happen in India about this, how to deal with discipline. Okay, but we never use our innovation techniques. How do we resolve things? Okay, we have same classroom technique. Okay, where audience is sitting that way. I don't like the system. It has to be circle.
Yes.
Circle is power. And I have experimented with many circles and just get dramatic results. All the things which Apurva said is possible through circles. Very easy. We only need to come together, that's all. That's the only condition. You come together and power comes to your hands. And people will come to you. The thing is, the desire, Ichha Shakti, that's important. After this mediation program, as a follower, what's the idea that works to empower you? See, theory is in one case, practice is important. We need practitioners coming together, not alone, coming together is important. If you don't have support systems in mediation, it doesn't work. If you work alone, no, you will just fizzle out. You get frustrated with the system. So first important condition is coming together. Group of 5. You already have groups here. Okay, you already have A, B, C, D, E, whatever it is. So if these groups meet regular intervals, it has a power. You see how the whole system starts changing. Talk about it. You will talk of town. If people come together, you will not do anything. Simple coming together every week, every 15 days, or even monthly months. I've been meeting young people every month, every first Sunday of the month, for last 40 years. Every first Sunday, 1:30 p.m. at Gandhi Ashram, we meet. That's all, we don't do anything. And that has brought a lot of change. What we do when we meet? We just sit in a circle, share our concerns, share our experiences. Maybe you have read a good book, you have to talk about it, good article, you can read about it. You can talk about your own concerns, talk about the ideas that you have when you want to do something. So anything sharing takes place in an open space, non-judgmental space, where you're not judging the person. So all the principles that you learn in mediation has to be practiced. You're not accusing each other, not blaming each other, working collectively. Pick up one small project that you can do together. That will bring change. That will change yourself, that will change society. So this is power that you have. You don't need resources also. To do anything, if you depend upon your own resources, it will empower you. We've been organizing programs for the last 40 years without raise funding. We don't raise funding. And all programs are done. Because I believe in the circle. We do 2-3 things. We don't blame each other. We collectively work. We don't give advices. No guidance. But we share our perspectives. We believe that there is no ready-made solutions. There might be theories, everything is there. But in mediation, there can be no ready-made solutions. Each client is different. Everything is different. You need to work together and find the solution. And ready to commit mistakes. I think Apurva also said the same thing. We celebrate failures. And when you go to the community, you will find people, some who are, one is, they're very communicative. Any issues there, they're very eager to run with you, to help you in this process. They're so eager for mediation. As a natural character, you'll find. So identifying those people who can help you in this process. See, paralegal people need also training. So if you include lawyers who are with the community, train certain people into mediation, they will help you in this process. It can become more effective because they know the community, they know what's happening there. They can help you to bridge. So there's so many ideas to work for. So my task is to encourage you, to inspire you all to take up this responsibility. I think it's a great privilege for all of you to be part of this process. And you're creating history. Mind. In the Bangladesh history, this will be a revolution. If spark comes from you, it will be a revolution. Judiciary will talk of your groups. They'll invite you for talks. How do you make this happen? You're able to solve so many cases. And it becomes easy only when you practice it. When you internalize all the more than law, important is how you connect with the people. The people's connection is important. And I'm sure there are a lot of resource materials available, training programs available. Take advantage of those. But practicing is must. Once you start practicing, then everything will happen. And one thing I'll not answer, I'll not answer this question. Because normally I do with young people.
Okay.
The question I ask is, are you curious? And I'm sure each one of you is so curious to learn, to understand, so receptive. So I will not ask that question. So if you have any questions, I can take later. Many things to share, but I think the time limitation is that. I think I think he's waiting. He didn't say anything. He's waiting that seeing the watch also maybe. That it's a lot of time. I've been getting not the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
So thank you so much
Thank
for the wonderful opportunity.
Yes.
Any support you need, please contact me. I'll be very happy to support you in any of the processes, whatever things you do. God bless you.
They know me very well.
I don't know much about him, but
Yes,
but he is at this age. Just imagine the dynamism, the energy that he has. It's wonderful, and he's so cooperative. Everything, yes, let's do it. Let's do it.
It is possible because he is a lawyer.
He's a God. And more thing is the humanness that he has. Humanness that he has. And that's important. So welcoming. And truly following the Nepali tradition.
Of course.
Yes. So welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. I should say good morning or good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good morning.
Good morning, yes. Still good morning, right. Good morning, good morning. May I request you all to stand up
Oh, man.
without pen and your notebook. And raise your two hands like this. Yes. What a wonderful speech delivered by our two previous speakers. Like a big hand 3 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you may sit down. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Yeah. He will convey to Dr. Apurva Patel, right? It was our standing ovation to both of you. Yeah. Well, how to begin with? I'm excited. I have learned so many things since yesterday. Number one, let me ask a couple of questions to you all. You might have heard about the word driving. Do you know driving?
Yes.
Do you know how to drive? Very good. Very good. For me, in theory, I know many things about driving.
Okay.
But in practice, if I don't sit just in front of the stair, what do you call, right? Driving seat, then there's no question of a good driver. There's no question of good driver. Driving. Like that, typing. How many of you are aware of typing?
Typing.
Typing.
Most of us.
If you don't touch with your fingers, laptops, How will you type? You must start typing. Like that, swimming. I know many things about swimming in theory, but I'm afraid of my legs pulling into the water. Then how can I become a good swimmer? It's a question to you all. Like that, speaking. I know many things in theory. How to be a good speaker. How to manage eye-to-eye contact with the listeners. How to face each and every face of all audiences, turn by turn. I know those all things in theory. But if I don't start practicing, what is the use of knowing so many things in theory? Speaking, right? Like that, pleading. As a lawyer, you know how you are trying your level best.
Yes.
How to become a good lawyer. I know so many things in theory, but in practice, I am afraid of standing on my two legs before the bench. I am afraid of looking at the face of sitting judges. There's no question of eye contact with the judges. Those are things I may know in theory, but in practice, I have never started. How can you become a good lawyer? Like that, mediating. You know many things about mediating. You are not there going to adjudicate. You are there to mediate. You have to help the concerned parties. You are not there to convince them or impose your idea. Those are things just to facilitate them. Those are things you know in theory. But in practice, if you are not going to really start mediating, how can you become a good mediator? It's my question to you all. That means those are words, whatever I used in front of you, at the end were three letters, ING, driving, speaking, swimming, typing, whatever it may be, mediating. At the end, ING, for those ING, you must practice. Practice, practice, practice. Then only you can be successful. Mediator. Am I right?
Yes.
Good. Very good. You have made me energetic in the beginning, so I should speak loudly as a lawyer before the bench at the Supreme Court of Nepal. Right? Exactly like that, you know, the Supreme Court of Nepal has given a slogan. Perhaps you know the system about Nepalese law. The senior most justice of the Supreme Court is the chairperson of Nepal Mediation Council. That's the law. It's an act, we call it, right? And our slogan, our means, the slogan of the Supreme Court of Nepal, that is given in Nepali. I'd like to translate in English. First of all, let me speak in Nepali language. Hamro samasya, hamrai समाधान, मेल मिलाप, मेल मिलाप, हाम्रो समाधान कमा हाम्रो समस्या कमा हाम्रै समाधान कमा मेल मिलाप. हाम्रो समस्या, our problem, right? हाम्रै समस्या, our own solution equal to
Mediation.
mediation. That is the slogan given by the Supreme Court of Nepal.
Wow.
Right? We have been trying in this direction, but I don't know. We are just, I should say, beginner. Bangladesh fast ahead. Nepal is trying to follow it up. Right? Anyway, so coming back to your revolution, your responsibility, you are a well-trained mediator, right? Am I right? And now you have to start mediating the parties. You must keep in mind that you are a key player. Key player. Key process manager. You are the process manager. As my previous speaker says, admit to make mistakes. Don't be afraid of making mistakes, Of course, you may have to keep in mind that very things also. But in my opinion, in my practice of law since last 44 years, what do you know about the job of a practicing lawyer? What's the main job of a practicing lawyer? Can you say anybody? Main job of a practicing lawyer.
Dealing with the client.
Main job of a lawyer before the bench in a court of law.
Assisting the court to finding justice.
Noble wishes. Noble wish. Practically speaking,
Yes, we completely.
the job of a practicing lawyer at the level of the Supreme Court is convince the judges and try to win the case in favor of your client. Convince the judges. Try your level best. But psychologically, if you are unable to convince the judge, sitting judge, then finally you will try to confuse the judges. That's the main job of a successful lawyer. I don't know about Bangladesh, I'm talking about my country. First try to convince in favor of your client.
Then confused again.
Forget about the justice. You have to win the case in favor of your client. Right? Psychologically reading, looking at the judges, their eyes and those all things, Well, if you are going to be unable to convince the judges, then try to confuse them and get some sort of order without getting the final verdict. Quite opposite to the case of a mediator.
Yes.
You should never try to that direction as a mediator. As we all know, mediation is less time consuming, less expensive, harmonious.
Yes.
There are a couple of words, my wife used to share with me before I left for Dhaka this time. Please try to use a couple of words in your class over there, Not only sympathy, but empathy. Do you know what's the main difference between sympathy and empathy? You must be empathy, not only sympathy. As a mediator, right? Am I right? Exactly like that, You must be all the time able to understand your client, I should say, your party. At the same time, you must also be able to understand the psychology of opponent parties. Somewhere you may be able to. You may need to be a diplomat also somewhere, right? Of course, hard working is there all the time, right? So keeping those all things in mind, as a mediator, let me ask you one more question. Have you, any one of you or some of you, already started practicing mediation before your clients? Have you started? Some of you might have started, right?
Yes.
So in the very beginning, you must have some sort of new experience, very successful, or maybe, it's a very difficult task, not so rewarding, right? If I plead in the case, you put the judges in a court of law, you may earn more money, right? if you do or if you work for, in a case of arbitration, you may earn more money. But in mediation, little money, but more satisfaction.
More satisfaction as well as more.
More satisfaction. And lasting forever. Lasting forever. Even after arbitration award, that may not be final one. If one of the parties is there to appeal. But in our mediation, if you can come to a conclusion, that is fine. Very good, satisfaction. Am I right? So you are well experienced in this regard. Let me give you one example, In brief, I had an opportunity to share with Dr. Patel that very example yesterday. My wife is not a mediator. She is a professor in psychology. But she was able to help some of the parties to be a successful, mediation. Let me give you one example. One couple divorced legally by the district court of Kathmandu, Nepal. 3 years, 4 years already gone. Their children are ready to get married. Both of them are not satisfied after getting divorced. Then both of them were familiar with my wife. Then my wife started discussing with them, why did you get married? Why did you get divorced? Without informing anybody, they got divorced, legally. Then wife said to my wife, what to do, madam? He was a good husband, but he became so lazy later on, he doesn't earn a single money. Months and months and months and months gone. He doesn't want to earn either. Dependable upon me very much. I'm doing this job, I'm employees, plus so many other organizations, additional job also. I have to take care of my children. I have to feed him also as my husband. So I fed up. Then finally I decided to quit and get divorced. He also agreed, and we did it without informing anybody in our family. That was the saying of the wife. Going back to the husband, why did you get divorced? That was the question of my wife. Both of them were quite familiar with my wife. My wife is a head of the Central Department of Psychology at the Tribhuvan University for more than 11 or 12 years. She got retired now, after 6 or 7 years ago. Of course, continuing to deliver lectures for PhD students and 3 days a week nowadays. Anyway, then the saying of the husband was there, well, she was my pretty wife, also beautiful to look at, very helpful to me too, but what to do? She wants me to be very active, to work all the time and get money for her, earn money for her. Then I should not spend my time in playing, gambling, enjoying with my friends. Then at this age, it was very difficult for me to do. So she proposed for divorce and I agreed and I got a divorce. Finished. Then she said to him, well, was there anything wrong from your wife? Those are things. I also request to my husband, who is 6 years older to me. He is more active in his profession. Meets his clients early in the morning in his law chamber. Works hard and sometime, even at this age, sometime up to 9 p.m. Of course, I don't allow mostly. But what are you talking about? You are quite young to my husband. No, madam. Madam, I'm changed now. I want to get relaxed. Then, one meeting, two meeting, three meeting, and finally within 6 months, my wife was successful and then convinced both of them with the presence of their children. The children wanted to be,
With both the
yeah,
parents.
both of them must be able to return and maintain original conjugal life, right? Law was there just to go back to the district court and like that in the past, get divorced, now get combined, all right, under the laws of Nepal. And after 6 months, he was quite successful. Now, 6 or 7 years gone, very happy conjugal life, both of them, all of them are happy. Very good example. So I'm giving you this example because she is not a mediator, right? But she knows about empathy, not only sympathy, right? She knows human psychology. She knows how to study a person deeply. What was the main reason of getting divorced? What was the main reason of, you are a mediator, what's the main reason to a litigation, right? What's the main reason for dispute? So ADR, alternate.
Lack of understanding.
Pardon?
Lack of understanding.
Yes,
Disagreement,
yes,
lack of
very well said,
understanding.
very well said, all right? If we try to understand each other amicably, based on the principles of human values, then there shall be no dispute at all in this world. At the same time, we should not be afraid of disputes, conflict. Those are things come with us in our life. Some of us are saying that these all things are needed for development. In this new world, conflict, dispute, those are things we have got to face it. We have to be ready to face it amicably and get the solution. So in this task, mediator is very important. Mediation is very important. So let me repeat one sentence. I said yesterday too. You may write down also in your notebook one sentence. I like it very much in my life since last 5 or 6 years. Before that, I didn't like it. I was not in favor of mediation. I wanted to have as many as cases, litigations, and want to fight and win the case in favor of my clients. Now I'm changed, right? So मूल मंत्र मेरे लिए ये है, mediation. You may write down. Mediation is the best meaningful word in any dictionary. Let me repeat. Mediation is the best meaningful word in any dictionary. Are you convinced with this sentence? If you are convinced, then you can convince the judges. Not necessary to try to confuse the judges. Exactly like that, you may be able to convince your own parties or your opponent parties. Then maybe a successful mediator. Look at this present world, We may talk about Israel, Hamas. We may talk about Ukraine, Russia, those all things, If we can find out very successful international mediator in the present context of the world may be changed. Of course, it takes time. It takes time. If we all work unitedly hard, even the statute of the UNO may be changed. Of course, there is some sort of veto power, So we may be able to change in the future with the help of successful international mediator. So those are things, we may need to work together. And finally, I'd like to give you some of the examples about Nepal, right? One thing we must admit as a practicing lawyer, I don't hesitate to admit professionals are not free of cost.
Yes.
Nothing is free in this world. For example, let me give you my own example. If I stand before a court of law and pleading or say argue in favor of my client 30 minutes, 40 minutes, I may earn a good amount of money.
Yes.
But if I serve to a client of mine for the purpose of mediation, very little money. Of course, more satisfaction. Satisfaction comes later. First comes money. If you are below 60, I'm 74 now, no problem. Then what happens, finally to be a successful country or say community for the purpose of mediation, finally your own government must be responsible. Access to justice is the main thing, finally. Access to justice. Let me give you a few examples of my own country. Of course, mediation was started in Nepal with the help of a small amendment at the district court regulation 20 years ago. That was the beginning. Then started, after 3 years, another amendment in the regulations of Supreme Court regulations and High Court, not High Court at that time, Court of Appeal regulation at that time, 17 years ago. Then after 5 years, we were able to manage Mediation Act. That was 12 years ago. Then 10 years ago, from today, just 10 years ago, regulations related to mediation, 10 years ago. These all are legal points, right? Legal management, I should say, management related to law in Nepal. But practically, what is the scenario at present? You may be surprised. Now, we have got the legal provision at the level of the Supreme Court, High Court, District Court, plus local government. We call it municipality in Nepal. What do you call here? Palika in our local language. Even in India, I think they call Palika. Am I right? Palika. Local government, right? In Nepal, at present, we have got 753 Palikas, right? Local government. Each of the Palikas has got a judicial committee which has got the power or responsibility or duty as well for the sake of mediation for certain cases, not for criminal cases and those other things, right? But practically, what is the problem, It's a great problem. First of all, they are not trained at all. They have no capacity or say ability to understand at all. And above all, the main problem is they are elected by the people. If problem comes over there, they were elected by some of the parties, right? There's a 3-member committee, right? The deputy mayor is the chairperson, mostly women, right? Mostly women. Mayor is mostly male in Nepal. And deputy mayor is mostly female. Of course, exception is there somewhere. And under the chairperson of the deputy mayor, there are 2 members, left hand side, right hand side, that party, different parties, political parties. So they are the judges, all right? A practicing lawyer comes there and start arguing. Your lord, this and this and this and this and this. They don't understand at all. They have no training, no background. But they understand very much. Even a simple telephone call from their voters. Quickly they understand. Oh, he was my voter. He was there, very much helpful to me to win my case. So I must support him, whatever may be the law, I don't know. Those are legal things belong to the practicing lawyer. We don't know. We know our voters. That's all. So in this case, in this context, how to be a successful, you know, how would you look for successful result? Difficult. Practically difficult. Practically difficult. So now what we have started as a helping hand, the mediation in Nepal, even the Supreme Court of Nepal, I have formed a few committees, 15, 16, 17 committees. One of the most active committees in my Supreme Court Bar Association of Nepal is the Mediation Committee. We have got well-trained manpower, senior advocate, who are over, I should say, 65 or 66 years of age. They were very active in the past as a practicing lawyer. They were able to earn money, whatever was needed for them. Now, the rest of their life, they want to give for mediation. That doesn't mean that they already gave up their court practice. But very few cases only they want to accept in their law firm. Very few cases. Otherwise, enjoy and discuss with the clients and serve the people who are ready for mediation. Legally speaking, I was just saying, Supreme Court, High Court, District Court, the concerned bench may order to go to the mediation center we call it. The mediation center, they will call, he or she will call both the parties. In many cases, the respective lawyers also go over there, keep company with them. Then what happens in practice, the mediators themselves are not properly trained, and they are not able to deliver their services to our expectation. That is the problem. Not only that, in most of the cases, one of the parties doesn't turn up. Then what's the use of spending those of time and money and energy and those of things? And the main incentive for a mediator in Nepal, the incentive given, I should say not given, the incentive managed by the legal provision is very, very nominal amount, nominal fee. Nepalese rupee 5,000 from one party and 5,000 from another party. So in total it comes 10,000 Nepalese rupee. Maybe 9,000 Dhaka, something like that. Something like that. Anyway, so mediators are not motivated. One mediator was there to look after 15 or 20 cases a day. So how will be the result? What do you expect from that mediator? No time at all to concentrate on the case. That's the problem in Nepal. Frankly speaking, counseling is the main problem. Process of mediation is the main problem in Nepal. I don't know about Bangladesh. Law is there, no problem. But in practice, what to talk about a mediator only? What to talk about a party only? Some of the judges, sitting judges, are not in favor of mediation, or they are not convinced about the concept of mediation. They don't know about the bright future of mediation in this world. Perhaps they are short-sighted, Well, if I issue this sort of verdict, if I deliver this sort of verdict, I may have something under the table. Some of the judges might be like that also. But quite opposite. Some of the judges are so strong and so hard. This is the nature of this case. So this case must be compromised. Some of the judges are like that. Let me give you my own example. In the past, I used to go out of Kathmandu Valley also for certain nature of the cases. It was perhaps 30 or 31 years or 32 years ago. I had to visit a court at Chitwan, about 4 to 5 hours drive from Kathmandu Valley. Then there was a case, and the senior most judge of the district court was there to take up the case. Then he said, during our argument, yes, Vidwanji, this case must be compromised. Must. He said must. Yes. Yes, your Lord, I appreciate your observation, but how to do it? Yeah, both parties lawyer, both of you are here. You have to help the bench. It must be compromised. Then okay, tea break was there. Then the judge was so kind enough, he called us, both of us, both lawyers. He called us to his chamber and offered cup of tea with biscuit. Okay, you keep in mind, this case must be compromised. Today time is not enough, but it must be compromised. Then okay, fine, thank you so much, Lord. Let us try. You must try. We will try. Then okay, bye bye. Then after 3 weeks, if I remember correctly, after 3 weeks, next hearing day, the same bench, unfortunately. Do you understand the meaning of unfortunately? Because I was of the strong opinion that my client will win the case based on fact. So unfortunately, I used the word. The same means, and he said, yes, Barishta Deokta Jew, that means senior relative Jew. Barishta Deokta, any progress for mediation? Yes, your Lord, we are positive. If the bench is there to one side or that side, you have to understand the psychology of the bench very carefully. If you said no at all, then you lose the case immediately. He will deliver the verdict, right? He or she will deliver the verdict. Yes, your Lord, we are trying. No, you have to try. You have to try. I think the time was not enough again for you. You must try. Where are your parties? Where are your clients? They are here, your Lord. Yeah, please. Rise your seat. Okay, what's the problem? You are not ready to compromise. Your Lord, I have to ask my lawyer. Then what's your problem? Sriman, I have to ask my lawyer. We finished. Who is the problem creator?
The lawyers.
Right?
Yes.
But in many cases, lawyers are also problem solver. And then, anyway, okay, that day, gone. The third time, after 1 month, right? Again, I also wait again. It was difficult for me. Even then, I managed my time, went over there. Again, finally, unfortunately, the same means. Alright? Then there was no chance to escape. No chance to escape. Then during the tea break, we came out. You must finalize today. You must finalize today. That was the order of the bench, right? Then both of them were sitting together. Practically, there was no problem with the clients. There was the problem with the practicing lawyers. So both of us agreed and finished. And the next day morning, legally, everything well drafted. The sitting judge duly signed and finished. sometimes it happens. That means if a sitting judge is very serious for certain type of cases to compromise or say to mediate, it can be done. It can be done, no problem. Quite opposite, some of the judges are quite different. Well, one has to win, one has to lose. We are just working for the God, and God will help in delivering justice. We are not responsible. Very irresponsible sort of feeling is there. In spite of that, we have to be optimistic. We have to see our bright future. And as I said earlier, the best sentence, mediation is the best meaningful word in any dictionary, because you are going to be a very active mediator in this country or wherever locality you are. I wish you all the best. If you come to Kathmandu, Nepal sometime in the future, you may give a call to me. My telephone number is there. My tenure as the president of the Supreme Court Bar Association is still 14 or 15 months more.
Wow.
I'll be there. 2 years tenure. I was elected 9 or 10 months from there. At this age, they offer me. In the beginning, I said no. Then somebody, no, you must stand. You will be unanimous. Unanimous candidate. Oh, unanimous? Okay. Okay, then you give me 3 or 4 days time. I have to discuss with my wife and my sons also, right? It was difficult to convince my wife also in the beginning. Okay, if you are going to be unanimous, okay, that's fine. Of course, you are completing 73. Then I said, okay, then go ahead. They started. Finally, the time had come to apply for the candidacy. All right? The central government of Nepal, their coalition changed. Leftist, Congress party, this or that changed. Immediately after that change, another younger brother of mine, he stood up as a candidate. Yes, unanimity must be there, but not Harishankar Nerola, Tulasi Bhatta. His name was Tulasi Bhatta, right? And then I told my followers or my well-wishers, why should I become a candidate, What to gain, what to win in this age, Now, you cannot say, you cannot withdraw your candidacy now. You have to stand. Well, it is up to you. Then I had to stand up. They made me winner, finally. So this is also happens sometimes in life, right? Anyway, so coming back to the point, this is all about the mediation process in Nepal. And personally, I'm convinced that his future is really bright in the future. Such a person, who is by profession, she is a professor in the university, has been able to manage her valuable time to motivate us, to help us. This is our future, So she's trying her level best, and he is trying to make us. And at this age, my great friend of mine, Senior Advocate Goswami, S.N. Goswami, day and night he has been working. In my opinion, he is a true example of a social worker. Let's give a big hand. So with these words, I'd like to take your leave, and I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
শুভ অপরাহ্ন. Good afternoon. Although I am instructed, Dr. Professor S.N. Goswami sir, Advocate S.N. Goswami sir, to speak in Bangla, but since we have foreign friends here, so I have decided to speak both in Bangla and English at the same time to help others to understand. Okay. So as you know that the topic that I'm going to discuss on is Gramin Shalish in Bangladesh, and I know that most of you are from law background, right?
Yes.
আপনাদের মধ্যে কেউ আছে যে ল ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড নন, যে আইন পড়ে আসেন নাই, নন ল ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড? You have anyone? No one, right? So everyone is law student. Excellent. So before going into details, I'd like to show this thing. আপনারা যারা গ্রাম আদালত আইন 2006-2013 সালের অ্যামেন্ডমেন্ট পড়েছেন তারা জানেন যে 14 ধারায় গ্রাম আদালতে একটা কথা লেখা আছে যে গ্রাম আদালতে কোনো আইনজীবী নিয়োগ করা যাবে না। আপনি নিশ্চয়ই এটা পড়েছেন। Why do you think that this particular provision is there, that you cannot hire a lawyer in the village court? Kano, what do you think?
Bad reputation.
Like
They are
you are in a court.
They are not financially capable to afford a lawyer at first
মানে এটা
instance. And
Right.
it can be a reason, one
It
of the
can be.
reason.
It can be, right? It can be.
And
Although we know that there may be persons who are very financially affluent,
other than
Fluent,
this,
হ্যাঁ।
other than this,
প্ল্যাটফর্মটা ইকুয়াল করার জন্য।
right? Other than financial reasons, what can be the other reasons? যে
যেন লিটিগেশন পর্যন্ত না যেয়ে আমরা হচ্ছে সালিশের মাধ্যমে এই ব্যাপারটা solve
গ্রাম
করে ফেলবো।
আদালতে গেলে হয়তো দুটো পক্ষকেই ডেকে তারা ওই মেডিয়েশনের যে কাজটা করে সমঝোতা করে দিতে পারে ইজিলি, হয়তো এই কারণে কোনো lawyer থাকে না।
so basically they're village people. They're not so educated, and they feel that it's the philosophy, it's the science that if they move towards the court, before the court, then there are various formalities are associated with it. So it won't be favorable for them to get the remedy or what they're entitled to from the proper adjudication process. So other than this is the
That can be
platform
one
which
reason.
they prefer.
রাইট, এছাড়া আর কি কারণ থাকতে পারে যে একটা
আমাদের-
আদালত, যেটা আমরা বলছি গ্রাম আদালত, কিন্তু সেখানে আইনজীবী নিয়োগ করা যাবে না?
এক্সাক্ট ডিসপিউটটা বোঝার জন্য যদি
ডিসপিউটটা
কোনো লয়ারের মাধ্যমে হয় তাহলে হয়তো তারা লিটিগেশনের মাধ্যমে বা লিটিগেশনের ফর্মে গিয়ে অন্যভাবে কোনো কিছু অ্যাপ্রোচ করতে পারে, যাতে এক্সাক্ট ডিসপিউটটা বোঝার জন্য যে কি ছিল দুই পক্ষের কাছে, যাতে ইজিলি এটা সমাধান করা যায়।
রাইট। সো আমি যেটা মনে করি আর কি, যে আমরা মিডিয়েশন নিয়ে সবাই অ্যাক্রিডিটেড মিডিয়েটর হিয়ার, আমরা অনেক কথা বলেছি, টকড আ লট অ্যাবাউট মিডিয়েশন, রাইট? So we know that mediation is not a formal procedure. It is an informal procedure. I have been teaching law students for last 7 years around, and I have seen that when we talk about informal procedure, or when we ask questions to law students that what can be the solution of a particular dispute, they struggle to come out of the legal jargon, come out from the legal mindset. আমরা যারা আইনজীবী বা আইন নিয়ে পড়াশোনা করেছি, যে কোনো একটা সমস্যার সমাধানে আমরা আইনের বাইরে অন্য কিছু চিন্তা করতে পারি। We always think that what is lawful and what is unlawful. We always think that who is right and who is wrong, what is correct and what is incorrect, right? But when we talk about mediation or any other alternative dispute resolution procedure, we are not actually dealing with laws, right?
Dealing with the problems, root
Mostly we are dealing with problem, and we are trying to come
solve the problem.
with an amicable solution, right? So, আমি আমার একটা পার্সোনাল এক্সপেরিয়েন্স শেয়ার করি। এই বেশ কিছুদিন, আমার মনে হয় 6 মাস আগে, কোনো একটা স্টুডেন্ট আমাকে একটা প্রবলেম নিয়ে আসলো যে তার বাসায় তার বড় বোনের গহনা চুরি গেছে। বড় বোনের গহনা চুরি গেল, এরপরে তারা বুঝতে পারলো যে গত 15 দিনে শুধুমাত্র ওই বাসায় কাজের মহিলা ছাড়া অন্য কেউ আসেনি। So there were nobody for last 20 days who came in their house. So immediately they thought that the maid should be the person who stole the jewelry. তো এরপরে পরের দিন যখন কাজের মহিলা আসলো, কাজের মহিলাকে ধরা হলো এবং তারপরে তাকে কোয়েশ্চেন করা হলো, পুলিশ ডাকা হলো। তারপরে কাজের মহিলার বাড়ি সার্চ করার পরে দেখা গেল যে সত্যি সত্যি সেই গহনার কিছু অংশ, সাম পার্ট অফ জুয়েলারি, তার কাছে আছে। বাকিটা সে বলছে না। প্রায় 10 ভরি সোনার গহনা চুরি করে নিয়ে গেছে, তার মধ্যে 1.5 ভরি কি 2 ভরি সোনার গহনা পাওয়া গেছে, বাকিটা সে নেয় নাই। অনেকভাবে প্রেসার করা হলো, মামলা দেয়া হলো কাজের মহিলার বিরুদ্ধে, মেইডের বিরুদ্ধে, ইনক্লুডিং হার ডটার অ্যান্ড হার গ্র্যান্ডসন, তার নাতি এবং তার মেয়ে, সবার বিরুদ্ধে মামলা দেওয়া হলো এবং তাদেরকে হুমকি দেওয়া হলো যে all of them were sent to the jail for at least certain period of time. তারপরও কাজের মহিলা স্বীকার করলো। এরপরে সে তার মামলা কোর্টে গেল, তিনি জেলে গেলেন, তার রিমান্ড হলো, তারপরে কিছুই পাওয়া গেল না। ইন দ্য মিন টাইম প্রসিকিউশন লয়ার ডিফেন্স লয়ারের সাথে কথা বললো যে লেট আস নট ড্র্যাগ দিস কেস, বিকজ কাজের মহিলা খুবই গরিব মানুষ এবং তার কাছ থেকে খুব বেশি কিছু টাকা পাওয়া যাবে সেটাও আমার স্টুডেন্টের ফ্যামিলি মনে করছে না, তো কাজেই এই কেসটা অ্যামিকেবলি সলিউশন করা হোক। বাট লয়ার্স নট ইন্টারেস্টেড। এবং সবচেয়ে অ্যামেজিং হচ্ছে কাজের মহিলা নিজেও ইন্টারেস্টেড না। তারপরে আমরা বুঝতে পারলাম যে হয়তোবা কাজের মহিলা লয়ার তাকে বুঝিয়েছে যে দিস ইজ আ ওপেন অ্যান্ড শাট কেস, ইউ উইল ডেফিনেটলি উইন, অথবা অন্য কোনো ভাবে তাকে জাস্টিস দেয়া হবে। ঠিক আছে, সো আমার যেটা মনে হয় সেটা হচ্ছে যে আমরা যখন মিডিয়েশন নিয়ে কথা বলি, লেট আস নট থিংক অ্যাবাউট ল অনলি। ঠিক আছে, এই কারণে ভিলেজ কোর্ট আইনে পার্টিকুলার প্রভিশন দ্যাট দেয়ার ক্যান বি নো লয়ার, ইউ ক্যানট হায়ার আ লয়ার, আপনি লয়ার নিতেই পারবেন না সেখানে। সো পার্টিজরা ওখানে গিয়ে শুধুমাত্র ল রিলেটেড কথাবার্তা বলবেন না, আমি কি অন্যায় করেছি কি ন্যায় করেছি বলবেন না, তারা মনের কথা বলতে পারবেন। আপনারা জানেন যে লয়ার যখন আপনার ম্যাক্সিমাম এখানে লয়ারের কাছে যখন একটা ক্লায়েন্ট আসে, মানে ক্লায়েন্ট কামস টু ইউ, তারা কিন্তু অনেক সময় অনেক ভীত থাকে, সব কথা বলতে পারে না, কোন কথা বলবে কোন কথা বলবে না। অনেকে অশিক্ষিত মানুষ থাকতে পারে যে আমি আইনজীবীর সামনে উকিল সাহেবের সামনে কি কথা বলবো কি বলবো না, তারা ভয় পায়। কিন্তু যখনই তারা বুঝতে পারে যে না এইখানে আসলে ল নিয়ে কথাবার্তা হবে না, তখন কিন্তু তারা ওপেনলি কথাবার্তা বলে। এটা একটা কারণ যে ভিলেজ কোর্টে পার্টিকুলারলি এই প্রভিশনটা আছে সিন্স দ্য বিগিনিং, সিন্স 2006, রাইট? সো আমরা যখন ল নিয়ে কথা বলবো, মিডিয়েশন নিয়ে কথা বলবো, লেট আস নট থিংক অ্যাবাউট ল অনলি। দিস ইজ দ্য ফার্স্ট মেসেজ হুইচ আই ওয়ান্ট টু গিভ টু ইউ। আমরা যখন সালিশ নিয়ে কথা বলছি, আমি শিওর যে সালিশ সম্পর্কে আপনাদের সবার অভিজ্ঞতা আছে। So when I am given this task to discuss on সালিশ, I thought that what new I could give to you, কি কথা বলবো আসলে, কারণ সালিশ নিয়ে আপনারা সবাই পড়াশোনা করেছেন, আপনাদের সবাই নিশ্চয়ই গ্রামে যাওয়ার অভিজ্ঞতা হয়েছে, বা শহরে বা গ্রামে ফ্যামিলি হোক বা অন্য কোনো ম্যাটার হোক, সালিশ দেখার অভিজ্ঞতা হয়েছে। তো তখন আমি চিন্তা করলাম যে লেট আস ফাইন্ড আউট হোয়াট কুড বি দ্য চ্যালেঞ্জেস। সো আমি মোস্টলি আমার পরবর্তী 20 মিনিটের সেশনে সালিশ নিয়ে খুব কম কথা বলবো, বরং চ্যালেঞ্জেস নিয়ে কথা বলবো এবং সালিশ কেমন হওয়া উচিত, what should be the shalish look like, এবং if a trained mediator goes into a shalish, তখন how can the outcome can be changed, এই বিষয়গুলো নিয়ে বেসিক্যালি আমি কথা বলবো। দিস ইজ নট এ ভেরি বিগ ডিল এবং আই এম শিওর যে আপনারা সবাই বিষয়টার সাথে রিলেট করতে পারবেন। সো প্রথমেই আমি একটা বিষয় চিন্তা করি, যদিও আমি বলে নিলাম যে আমরা লয়ের কথা বলবো না, কিন্তু তারপরও বাংলাদেশে আমরা যে কাজই করি না কেন সবকিছু কিন্তু কনস্টিটিউশনাল লেন্স দিয়ে দেখার একটা সুযোগ থাকে, whether it is constitutional, whether মৌলিক অধিকার fundamental rights has been ensured to the parties, এটা দেখার একটা সুযোগ থাকে। এবং আমরা জানি যে বাংলাদেশের সবচেয়ে গৌরবের জায়গা হচ্ছে, গৌরবের ইতিহাস হচ্ছে আমাদের মুক্তিযুদ্ধ। এবং আমাদের মুক্তিযুদ্ধের আগে, বিফোর দ্য লিবারেশন ওয়ার, Pakistanis were never like their behavior towards Bengalis were very like rude, they thought us inferior, right? সো এই কারণে বাংলাদেশের সংবিধানে বেশ কয়েকটা অনুচ্ছেদে ব্যবহার, মানবিক মর্যাদা, ভালো ব্যবহার, এই কথাগুলো সংবিধানে প্রত্যক্ষ বা পরোক্ষভাবে বেশ কয়েকবার এসেছে। যদি আপনারা দেখেন, ট্রিট শব্দটা এসেছে, ট্রিট, হাউ আ হিউম্যান অর এ সিটিজেন অফ দিস কান্ট্রি অর হাউ আ পার্টিকুলার পারসন অফ দিস কান্ট্রি ক্যান বি ট্রিটেড, তাকে কিভাবে ট্রিট করা যাবে সে কথা কিন্তু সংবিধানে এসছে। 31 অনুচ্ছেদে এসছে, 27, 29, 30 অনুচ্ছেদে এসছে, অনেকগুলো জায়গায় এসছে কিভাবে ট্রিট করা যাবে। ঠিক আছে, এবং মানবিক মর্যাদা পাওয়া যে মানুষের মানবাধিকার, সেই কথাটাও কিন্তু এসছে। এবং আমি একটু কোট করতে চাই প্রফেসর ডক্টর বিল্লা স্যারের বই থেকে, আমি একটু পড়ি। উনি এখানে লিখেছেন এভাবে যে জাস্টিস কৃষ্ণা আইয়ারকে উল্লেখ করে যে ভারতের নমস্য বিচারপতি জাস্টিস কৃষ্ণা আইয়ার 1980 সালে প্রেমশঙ্কর বনাম দিল্লি প্রশাসন মামলায় মানব মর্যাদার নিশ্চয়তাকে ভারতের সাংবিধানিক সংস্কৃতির অংশ বলেছেন, 1980 সালের মামলা। এবং আমরা জানি যে আইন বা কোন একটা সুপ্রিম কোর্ট বা ইভেন ইন্ডিয়ান কোর্টের মামলাও কখনো কখনো আমাদের কোর্টগুলোতে, আমাদের জাজমেন্টগুলোতে এটা পার্সুয়েসিভ ভ্যালু হিসেবে ব্যবহার করা হয়, প্রেসিডেন্স না বলে পার্সুয়েসিভ ভ্যালু হিসেবে ব্যবহার করা হয়, রাইট? সো তাহলে মানবিক মর্যাদা হচ্ছে আমাদের সাংস্কৃতিক, আমাদের সাংবিধানিক সংস্কৃতির অংশ। কাজে আমরা যখন সালিশ নিয়ে কথা বলছি, তখন সেই সালিশে কোনো একজন ব্যক্তির মানবিক মর্যাদা রক্ষিত হয়েছে কিনা সেটাও কিন্তু একটা বিবেচনার বিষয় হতে পারে। ধরা যাক কোনো একজন মহিলা বা কোনো একজন নৃতাত্ত্বিক জনগোষ্ঠী, let's say that there is a woman or a person from ethnic communities. So when these people are coming towards the shalish and disputes are the shalishkars are giving solutions, resolving the problem. So we have the chance to look at whether the human rights, fundamental rights had been ensured to that person or not. So সেই জায়গা থেকে সংবিধানের কিন্তু অস্বাভাবিক একটা গুরুত্ব নিশ্চয়ই আছে। So now let us move on. আমার এই পুরো আলোচনায় we will discuss on introduction to Shalish and Gramin Shalish. We will be following the key components of Gramin Shalish, Shalish procedure. We will discuss some of it. Mostly I will follow the challenges of Shalish system. We will discuss the village courts in Bangladesh, criticisms of village court in Bangladesh. We will also look at whether how far village court is successful so far since 2006, and we will see what can be the way forward, what can be the solution of the problem that I'm posing, I'm showing. শালিশ শব্দটা মাথায় আসলেই আমাদের কিন্তু মনে হয় যে আমরা গ্রামে ফিরে যাই, এবং শালিশ শব্দটা মাথায় আসলেই আমাদের we can visualize a particular setup where a particular person who is head of that শালিশ committee, mostly গ্রামে যেটা হয় সেটা চেয়ারম্যান হতে পারে বা গ্রামের কোনো রেসপেক্টেবল মুরব্বী হতে পারে। এরপরে পক্ষে বা বিপক্ষে পক্ষের যিনি থাকেন, যিনি শালিশ ডাকছেন, যার সমস্যা নিয়ে শালিশ ডাকা হচ্ছে, তার পক্ষে একজন, দুইজন, তিনজন থাকতে পারে, আবার বিপক্ষে যারা আছে তার পক্ষেও দুইজন থাকতে পারে। আর এখন তো ভিলেজ কোর্ট একটা পার্টিকুলার সেটআপ আছে। সো এই ধরনের কথা আমরা চিন্তা করি যেখানে অ্যামিকেবল একটা সলিউশন আমরা আশা করি যে এর মাধ্যমে আসবে। So let me read. Shalish is basically a practice of gathering village elders and concerned parties, exclusively male, mostly, for the resolution of local disputes. Sometimes chairman and elite members of the Union Parishad are invited. Right. So they are invited to sit through the proceedings. Shalish has no fixed dimension, and its size and structure depend entirely on the nature and gravity of the problem at hand. So এটা যদিও শালিশের সংজ্ঞা, কিন্তু আমরা যারা শালিশ দেখেছি, যাদের প্র্যাকটিক্যাল এক্সপেরিয়েন্স আছে শালিশ দেখার, আমরা জানি যে শালিশ হচ্ছে একটা খুব বড় হিউম্যান ক্রাইম। শালিশ কিন্তু খুব ঠান্ডা কোনো বিষয় না, এবং শালিশে অনেক সময় মারামারি লেগে যেতে পারে। শালিশে অনেক সময় দেখা যাবে সেখানে 100 লোক এসে গেছে কোন একটা পক্ষের, তাই না? তো সেই জায়গায় অনেক ধরনের হিউম্যান ক্রাইম হয়। এরকম খুব শান্ত একদম পার্টিকুলার সেটআপ নিয়ে শালিশ কখনো বসে না, ঠিক আছে? তো এই জায়গায় আমি যখন এটা দিয়ে দিব, যদি কারো পরবর্তীতে এটা নিয়ে পড়াশোনা করতে ইচ্ছে করে তাহলে এটা করতে পারে যে এখানে একজন পার্টিকুলার ব্রিটিশ অথর তিনি শালিশ সম্পর্কে কি অবজারভেশন দিয়েছে সেটার একটা কথা এখানে আছে। বাংলাদেশে এ পর্যন্ত শালিশ হচ্ছে সবচাইতে মোস্ট ইউজড প্ল্যাটফর্ম, সবচেয়ে মোস্ট ইউজড প্ল্যাটফর্ম হচ্ছে শালিশ। এবং ইউএনডিপির একটা পার্টিকুলার গবেষণা বলছে যে বাংলাদেশে 60 to 70% কেস, টোটাল ডিসপিউটের 60 to 70% এর শালিশে যায়, ঠিক আছে? এরপরে যখন আমরা একটু পরে ভিলেজ কোর্টের স্ট্যাটিস্টিক্স দেখবো তখন আমরা আরেকটু দেখবো যে টোটাল 60 to 70% কেস দে আর গোইং টু শালিশ। 2/3, তার মানে প্রায় 3 ভাগের 2 ভাগ মামলা কিন্তু কোর্টে আসছেই না, তারা কোর্টের বাইরে, আউট অফ দ্য কোর্ট সেটেলমেন্ট হয়ে যাচ্ছে, ঠিক আছে? তাহলে এটা নিয়ে আমাদের চিন্তা করার বিষয় নিশ্চয়ই আছে। সো নাও লেট আস সি কেন আসলে মানুষ শালিশটাকে এত বেছে নেয়। 60 to 70% মামলা শালিশে যাচ্ছে, ইউএনডিপি রিপোর্ট বলছে। Why do you think people are choosing shalish, not the court? Any opinion?
Cost effective,
It saves time.
তারপরে easy access,
It's not that much complex.
Right.
তারপরে
Right.
formal, হ্যাঁ।
রাইট, এগুলো আমরা সবাই জানি মোটামুটি। এডিআর এর যা যা ধরনের বেনিফিটস আছে সব বেনিফিট গুলো আমরা শালিশে পাই, কিন্তু আরো কিছু রিজন আছে যে রিজনগুলো এখানে উঠে এসেছে। কিছু মহিলাদের উপরে গবেষণা করা হয়েছে এবং দেখা গেছে যে মহিলারা বলছে, মহিলা এবং বিশেষ করে এই গবেষণাটা করা হয়েছে ইথনিক নৃতাত্ত্বিক জনগোষ্ঠীর উপরে, এবং সেই গবেষণায় উঠে এসেছে যে তারা আসলে দে ডোন্ট ট্রাস্ট কোর্ট, কোর্টকে বিশ্বাস করে না। মানে কোর্টে তো এক্সপেন্সিভ, এটা ঠিক আছে, দিস ইজ ভেরি এক্সপেন্সিভ, টাইম কনজিউমিং, ঠিক আছে, কিন্তু মোস্টলি দে বিলিভ দ্যাট কোর্ট উইল নট গিভ देम জাস্টিস।
No justice system.
জাস্টিস তো দিবেই না, বরং এটা একটা অসম্মানের কারণ হয়ে দাঁড়াতে পারে। দে আর ওয়ারিড অ্যাবাউট কারাপশন ইন কোর্ট। ঠিক আছে, সো এইটা না যে সালিশ খুব ভালো এই কারণে তারা সালিশকে চুজ করছে। যদি আমরা পরবর্তী দেখবো যে সালিশও কিভাবে করাপ্টেড হয়ে যেতে পারে, সালিশ কিভাবে পলিটিসাইজড হয়ে যেতে পারে, এবং পলিটিক্যাল গুনস আর ইউজিং সালিশ টু ম্যানিপুলেট পিপল টু শো দেয়ার মাসল পাওয়ার, রাইট? এই বিষয়গুলো কিন্তু আছেই। কিন্তু তারপরও গবেষণায় বলছে যে পিপল ডু নট ট্রাস্ট কোর্ট এনিমোর, মোস্ট অফ দেম। তারা চায় যে সমস্যাগুলো যতটা সম্ভব কোর্টের বাইরে গিয়ে সেটেল করার জন্য। আমি একটু আগে একটা উদাহরণ বললাম, আমার স্টুডেন্ট বলছে তারা কোর্টের বাইরে সেটেল করতে চায়, বাট লয়ার্স আর নট ইন্টারেস্টেড। ইন্টারেস্টিং। সো রাইট, সো গবেষণায় দেখা যাচ্ছে যে সালিশের সবচেয়ে ভালনারেবল গ্রুপ, যাদের উপরে অনেক সময় এমন কিছু সমাধান দেয়া হয়, সালিশের যে সমাধানগুলো, the solutions which are violating the human rights, women are mostly targeted in Shalish. Religious and ethnic minorities, they are also targeted in Shalish. Physically challenged people, poor people, progressive organizations. We will come to that. Progressive organizations, sometimes they are also subject to violations of their rights, their platforms or their installations, their buildings were burned down. ঠিক আছে, fatwas were given. আমরা আসবো এই জায়গাতে। So as we can see that women in the top. So এখন আইন ও সালিশ কেন্দ্রে আমরা একটা স্টাডি দেখি। আইন ও সালিশ কেন্দ্রে একটা স্টাডি বলছে যে 1993 সালে পুরো বাংলাদেশ জুড়ে ব্র্যাকের বেশ কয়েকটা স্কুল পুড়িয়ে দেওয়া হয়েছে। ওয়াই? এবং আমি যখন সালিশ নিয়ে পড়ছিলাম এবং গবেষণা করছিলাম, তখন দেখলাম যে সালিশে বিশেষ করে র্যাডিক্যাল বিভিন্ন ধরনের ডিসিশন দেয়ার যে বিষয়টা, এইটা গভর্নমেন্ট টু গভর্নমেন্ট চেঞ্জ হয়েছে। মানে আপনি যদি দেখেন সিন্স 1972 টু 1975 যদি জাজমেন্টগুলো দেখি আমরা, যে যে জাজমেন্ট পত্রিকা আসতো ওই সময়, যে যে স্টাডিগুলো আছে, সেই সময় একরকম ছিল, জিয়াউর রহমানের সময় এটা চেঞ্জ হয়ে গেছে, এর সাথে সময় আর এক রকম হয়ে গেছে। তখন সালিশের যে সালিশগুলো আছে, দে আর গিভিং আ সেট অফ ডিসিশনস হুইচ আর অলমোস্ট সিমিলার। 1991 থেকে 1996 পর্যন্ত যদি আপনি সালিশের রায়গুলো দেখেন, তাহলে দেখবেন যে এগুলো একরকম। যেমন 1991 থেকে 1996 পর্যন্ত প্রচুর পরিমাণে ফতোয়া দেখতে পাই আমরা। ইনফ্যাক্ট দ্য হাইকোর্ট at the end, High Court had to step forward and they have to give decision that how fatwas can be given and where fatwas cannot be given. Right? শেষ পর্যন্ত হাইকোর্টের একটা সিদ্ধান্ত দিতে হয়। সো 1993 সালে দেখা যাচ্ছে যে বেশ কিছু ব্র্যাকের স্কুল পুড়িয়ে দেওয়া হলো। ওয়াই? এটা বগুড়াতে খুব বেশি হয়েছে এই ঘটনাটা। আমরা বগুড়া আরো একটা স্টোরি দেখব। Because these schools were mostly focusing on the girls' education. মেয়ে শিশুদের বাচ্চাদের পড়াশোনা নিয়ে যেহেতু তারা কাজ করছিল, সো women should not be taught in the schools, therefore all the schools were burned down, right? 1993 ঘটনা এটা। এবং আরো কিছু ঘটনা আমরা দেখতে পাই 1994 এ, যেখানে স্কুল গোয়িং বাচ্চাদের বাবা মায়ের এগেইনস্টে ফতোয়া দেওয়া হচ্ছে। যারা স্কুল গোয়িং বাচ্চা, স্কুলে পাঠানো যাবে, তাদের বাবা মায়ের এগেইনস্টে ফতোয়া দেওয়া হচ্ছে। এবং ফতোয়া কি দেওয়া হচ্ছে? যে ফতোয়া হচ্ছে এরকম যে তাদের বাড়িতে যদি কেউ মারা যায়, তাহলে মারা যাওয়ার পরে যে ধর্মীয় কাজগুলো করতে হয় সেগুলো করা যাবে। ঠিক আছে, তারপরে তারা নতুন গাছ লাগিয়েছে, গাছগুলো কেটে ফেলো। 6000 গাছ একটা সালিশে কেটে ফেলার সিদ্ধান্ত হয়। and there were some students from religious schools which were very interested by this Shalish decision, and they cut down all 6000 trees. Okay. আচ্ছা, বগুড়ার আরেকটা কেস, যেখানে পার্টিকুলারলি নিচের অংশটা আপনারা দেখতে পাবেন যে একটা উইমেন এবং তার হাজবেন্ড, তাদেরকে একসাথে 101টা বেত্রাঘাত করার সিদ্ধান্ত হয় সালিশে। কেন? তার কারণ উইমেন গ্রামীণ ব্যাংক থেকে লোন নিয়ে ব্যবসা করার সিদ্ধান্ত নিয়েছে। সিন্স উইমেন আর কামিং ফরওয়ার্ড and they are doing business by their own self, সেই কারণে এই ধরনের একটা সিদ্ধান্ত হলো। তার উপরে যদি আপনি দেখেন তাহলে দেখবেন যে বগুড়াতে 12টা গ্রামে উইমেনদেরকে, 12টা গ্রামের ইমামরা মিলে উইমেনদেরকে একটা জায়গায় কনফাইন করার জন্য, মানে তারা যেন কাজ করতে না যায় সেই জন্য একটা ফতোয়া দিচ্ছে। সো এই বিষয়গুলো কিন্তু আমরা দেখতে পাই। এরপরে আমরা একদম রিসেন্ট ঘটনা দেখতে পাই যেখানে সালিশের মাধ্যমে এমন সিদ্ধান্ত দেয়া হচ্ছে, এমন মামলার বিচার করার চেষ্টা করা হচ্ছে যে মামলাগুলো আদৌ সালিশে যাওয়ার কথা না, তাই না? সো হিয়ার উই ক্যান see from the constitutional lens whether the human rights have been ensured, fundamental rights has been ensured to the victims or not. এবং মজার বিষয় হচ্ছে যে কিছু কিছু জায়গায় এখন পর্যন্ত এই যে আমি বললাম যে মানুষ কোর্টে যেতে চায় না, সো মানুষ কিন্তু জানে যে এই মামলাগুলো সালিশে যাওয়া যাবে না, তারপরে মানুষজন যায়। সো আমি যখন এটা নিয়ে পড়াশোনা করলাম যে মানুষজন আসলে কেন যায়, 4th ক্লাসের 4th শ্রেণীর একজন শিক্ষার্থী রেপড হয়েছে, তার বাবা মা কোর্টে না গিয়ে সালিশের কাছে গেল এবং সালিশ বসলো এবং তার বিচার হলো 20,000 টাকা এবং চড়থাপ্পড়। এটা হচ্ছে ধর্ষকের বিচার। So these are the backdrops of Shalish. We know that what are the advantages of Shalish, but these are the backdrop of Shalish. ঠিক আছে, আমরা ওই যে একটা জায়গা থেকে শুরু করেছিলাম, আপনার মনে আছে কিনা, যে lawyers cannot be hired, right? Lawyers সেখানে যেতে পারবে না। সো lawyers না থাকার একটা অসুবিধা কিন্তু আছে, সেটা আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি। সুবিধা যেমন আছে আবার একটা ব্যাকড্রপও আছে, সেটা আমরা এখানে দেখতে পাচ্ছি। খুব রিসেন্ট স্ট্যাটিস্টিক্স কি বলছে আমরা একটু দেখি। If I go to the very recent statistics, সেটা বলছে যে এ পর্যন্ত গত জানুয়ারি থেকে এ পর্যন্ত 44টা ঘটনা, কোথায় গেল, আচ্ছা যাই হোক, 44টা ঘটনা এ পর্যন্ত সালিশের ঘটনা এসেছে। এই 44টা ঘটনার মধ্যে 11টা ঘটনা হচ্ছে ধর্ষণের সালিশ, মানে 44টা সালিশের মধ্যে 11টা সালিশ ছিল ধর্ষণের সালিশ। এই 11টা সালিশের মধ্যে অ্যাটলিস্ট 3টা সালিশ আমরা দেখতে পাই যে ধর্ষণের শিকার মহিলার সাথে ধর্ষণকারীর বিয়ে দেওয়ার উদ্যোগ সালিশকারীরা নিয়েছে। ঠিক আছে, যে তারা উদ্যোগ নিয়ে তাদের সাথে বিয়ে দিয়ে তারা একটা মহান বিচার তারা তৈরি করবেন। সো দিস আর দ্য ব্যাকড্রপস অফ সালিশ। এখন এখানে সালিশকারীরা বা প্রতিটা এলাকায় যদি একজন ট্রেইনড মিডিয়েটর থাকে, then you know that can add a particular filter to this kind of backdrops, right? যে যদি একটা ট্রেইনড মিডিয়েটর থাকে at least, তাহলে কিন্তু এটার একটা পরিবর্তন আসতে পারে, যেটা আমরা পরবর্তী দিকে একটা রিকমেন্ডেশনে বলবো যে আমাদের এটা দরকার। কারণ কোন মামলাগুলো সালিশ করা যাবে এবং কোনগুলো যাবে না, এবং সালিশের মাধ্যমে এই ধরনের সিদ্ধান্ত দেয়া হলে সেটা মানবাধিকারের কোন জায়গাটা লঙ্ঘন হবে, এবং বাংলাদেশ কিন্তু আন্তর্জাতিক অঙ্গনের কাছে দায়বদ্ধ। আপনারা জানেন যে বাংলাদেশ সিডা কনভেনশনের পার্টি। সিডা কনভেনশনের পরে বাংলাদেশ 2000 সালে নারী ও শিশু আইন করলো এবং তারপরে সেটা পরিবর্তন করলো টু মিট আপ দ্য অব্লিগেশনস অফ দ্য সিডা কনভেনশন, রাইট? সো এই জায়গায় যদি আমাদের এখানে আমাদের ট্রেইনড মিডিয়েটর থাকে, তাহলে সালিশে যেমন গুণগত পরিবর্তন আসবে, একই সাথে এই ধরনের ব্যাকড্রপ, হিউম্যান রাইটস ভায়োলেশন, উইমেন রাইটস ভায়োলেশন, চাইল্ড রাইটস ভায়োলেশন থেকে আমরা উই ক্যান কাম আউট, রাইট? এখন আমরা একটু ভিলেজ কোর্টে দেখি। সো ভিলেজ কোর্ট 2006 সালের যে আইন, আপনারা সবাই পড়েছেন এই আইনটা, এবং আপনারা জানেন যে ভিলেজ কোর্টে কিন্তু একটা ফর্মাল স্ট্রাকচারের মধ্যে ইনফর্মাল বিষয় বসানোর চেষ্টা করা হয়েছে, এবং এটার পজিটিভ নেগেটিভ দুটো দিকই আছে। আমি একটু পরেই আপনাদের স্ট্যাটিস্টিক্স দেখাবো যে এ পর্যন্ত ভিলেজ কোর্ট কতটুকু সাকসেসফুলি তার কার্যক্রমগুলো পরিচালনা করতে পারছে। ভিলেজ কোর্টে একইভাবে ভিলেজ কোর্টের চেয়ারম্যান হন, ভিলেজ কোর্টের প্রধান হন ওই ইউনিয়ন পরিষদের চেয়ারম্যান। এর পাশাপাশি সেখানে 4 জন মেম্বার থাকে। 4 জন মেম্বার, 2 জন হচ্ছে বাদীর এবং 2 জন বিবাদীর। পছন্দ করা 4 জন মেম্বার থাকে, 2 জন করে। এর মধ্যে একজন করে হতে হন সেই ইউনিয়ন পরিষদের যিনি মেম্বার তাদের মধ্যে থেকে একজন। আর যদি সেটা মহিলা বিষয়ক কোনো ঘটনা হয় তাহলে এই 4 জনের মধ্যে 2 জন, দুই পক্ষ থেকে অ্যাটলিস্ট একজন করে মহিলা থাকতে হয়। এটা হচ্ছে কম্পোজিশন। এবং ভালো বিষয় হচ্ছে যে এ পর্যন্ত ভিলেজ কোর্টে যে মামলাগুলো আমরা দেখবো একটু পরে, জাস্ট লেট মি শো। এটা আমি এই ওয়েবসাইট থেকে নিয়েছি, গভর্নমেন্ট ওয়েবসাইট, ইউএনডিপির গভর্নমেন্ট প্রজেক্ট একটা। আপনারা নিশ্চয়ই এই প্রজেক্টের কথা জেনে থাকবেন অনেকেই। এই ওয়েবসাইট বলছে এ পর্যন্ত প্রায় দেখা যাচ্ছে যে 83% কেসেস যেগুলো সালিশে এসছে, ভিলেজ কোর্টে এসছে, ভিলেজ কোর্টে 83% কেসেস সাকসেসফুলি সমাধান করেছে। ঠিক আছে? আর এর মধ্যে আবার এই 83% এর মধ্যে যে নাম্বারটা হলো, এই নাম্বারের মধ্যে আবার 94% সাকসেসফুলি ইমপ্লিমেন্টেশন হয়ে গেছে, তার মানে বাস্তবায়ন করা সম্ভব হয়েছে। সো 83% কেসেস ভিলেজ কোর্ট ওয়্যার সাকসেসফুল এবং 94% কেসে আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি ইমপ্লিমেন্টেশন হয়েছে। তাহলে তো আমরা ভালোই দেখতে পাচ্ছি, কোনো সমস্যা নাই। কিন্তু সমস্যা না থাকলেও সমস্যা আছে। বিভিন্ন মানবাধিকার সংগঠনের গবেষণায় আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি these village courts are not free from their biases, politicization, their external influences, right? আমরা একটু পড়ি এটা। Study shows that 50% of the village court officials interviewed, মানে যতগুলো ভিলেজ কোর্টের অফিসিয়ালকে ইন্টারভিউ করা হয়েছে, during a research said that the functioning of the shalish or village court are influenced by the outside political leaders, community leaders, wealthy people, other influential people in the village. তার মানে 50%, অর্থাৎ যতগুলো গবেষণা দেখা যাচ্ছে এর মধ্যে 50% ভিলেজ কোর্টের মেম্বাররা বলছে যে ভিলেজ কোর্টের ডিসিশনগুলো ইনফ্লুয়েন্সড হয় 50% টাইমে। তার মানে আমরা যদি এখন আবার সাকসেস স্টোরিটা দেখি, 80% কেসে ভিলেজ কোর্ট সাকসেসফুল, তাহলে কিন্তু সেটা আবার কমে যাচ্ছে সেই জায়গায় নিশ্চয়ই, যদি আমরা সেইভাবে যাই গবেষণায়, যে কোন কোন জায়গায় পলিটিক্যালি ইনফ্লুয়েন্সড, কোন কোন জায়গায় সত্যিকার অর্থেই যিনি অপরাধের শিকার তিনি প্রতিকার পেয়েছেন এবং সেই প্রতিকার বাংলাদেশের সংবিধানে কোট আনকোট যে মানবিক মর্যাদা এবং তারপরে সংবিধানের যে মৌলিক অধিকার সেগুলো রক্ষিত করে তারপরে তার জাস্টিস মানে বিচার করা হয়েছে, তখন কিন্তু সেই সংখ্যাটা আবার কমে যাবে। সো এখন তাহলে আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি যে সালিশ এবং ভিলেজ কোর্ট, সালিশের একটা আপডেটেড ভার্সন ভিলেজ কোর্ট, সো দুইটা জায়গায় আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি দিজ আর নট ফ্রি ফ্রম দ্য প্রবলেমস দ্যাট উই ইউজুয়ালি হ্যাভ ইন দ্য কোর্ট। কোর্টে যে প্রবলেমগুলো আছে একই প্রবলেমগুলো কিন্তু আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি ভিলেজ কোর্টে, অ্যাপার্ট ফ্রম কোর্ট ইজ ড্র্যাগিং দ্য কেসেস ফর 5 to 6 years, 7 years, 10 years, কিন্তু ভিলেজ কোর্টে আমরা এই প্রবলেমটা ফেস করছি না। ভিলেজ কোর্ট এখন পর্যন্ত যতগুলো মামলা দেখা যাচ্ছে সবগুলো মামলাতেই বেশিরভাগ ক্ষেত্রেই নির্দিষ্ট সময়ের মধ্যে শেষ করতে পারছে, কিন্তু পলিটিসাইজেশন, কারাপশন সহ অন্যান্য যে বিষয়গুলো আদালতে আছে সেই বিষয়গুলো ভিলেজ কোর্টেও আছে। এখন আমরা একটু আগেই আমাদের বিজয় স্যার বলে গেলেন যে একটা সময় আসবে যখন এই কোর্টগুলো সব কলাপস করবে, হয়তোবা সেই সময় অনেক দূরে, বা কোর্টের গুরুত্ব কমে যাবে সেই সময় অনেক দূরে। এখন এআই এর অনেক উদ্ভাবন আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি এবং কোন কোন ক্ষেত্রে কিছু কিছু জায়গায় আমরা শুনছি যে ট্রেনিং এর মধ্যে মধ্যে আছে, এক্সপেরিমেন্টের মধ্যে আছে, যেখানে ওয়েবসাইটের মধ্যে ডিসপিউটটা লিখলে, ফ্যাক্ট লিখলে এআই সিদ্ধান্ত দিয়ে দিচ্ছে। তার মানে লয়ারের দরকার নাই, জাজের দরকার নাই। ঠিক আছে, কিন্তু আমরা বাংলাদেশের কথা চিন্তা করলে বাংলাদেশে বর্তমান সমস্যা সমাধানের জন্য, একটা প্রগতিশীল বাংলাদেশ গড়ার জন্য এবং বঙ্গবন্ধুর আদর্শে গড়ার জন্য, ডেফিনেটলি মুক্তিযুদ্ধের চেতনায় গড়ার জন্য অবশ্যই মিডিয়েশনের কোনো বিকল্প নেই। কিন্তু একই সাথে এটাও আমাদের মনে রাখতে হবে যে ট্রেন্ড মিডিয়েটর এই পুরো ব্যবস্থায় আপনারা যারা ট্রেন্ড হলেন তারা অবশ্যই অনেক বড় গুণগত পরিবর্তন আনতে পারেন এবং এই সমস্যাগুলো সমাধান করতে পারেন। ঠিক আছে, with this I conclude my discussion. If you do not have any question, please.
Well, আমরা যেটা জানি যে মিডিয়েশনটা ফ্যাসিলিটেটিং দি পিপল, নট গিভিং ভার্ডিক্ট বাই আওয়ারসেলভস অ্যাজ আ মিডিয়েটর। গ্রাম আদালতে কিন্তু আমরা ভার্ডিক্ট দিচ্ছি অ্যাজ আ চেয়ারম্যান অর হুএভার ইজ ইন দি কমিটি, তারা কিন্তু এটা ডিসিশনটা নিচ্ছে। There, I thought there is a provision for another mediation, মানে গ্রাম্য আদালতে মিডিয়েশনের আলাদা প্রভিশনস আছে। How is it, মানে এটা কিভাবে প্রসেস হচ্ছে সেটা জানার জন্য।
আচ্ছা, থ্যাংক ইউ। সো আমি বললাম যে গ্রাম আদালত আসলে একটা ফর্মাল সেটআপের মধ্যে ইনফর্মাল ব্যবস্থা দেওয়ার চেষ্টা করা হয়েছে, এবং বিশেষ করে সালিশ বা মিডিয়েশনে মিডিয়েটর শুধুমাত্র তাদের দুইজনকে একটা অ্যামিকেবল সলিউশন আসার জন্য হেল্প করে, বাট mediator is not the person who is giving the judgment, right? Because he or she is not the court. তিনি কিন্তু কোনো জাজমেন্ট দিচ্ছেন না, তিনি তার কোনো রায় পাস করছেন না, কোনটা রাইট কোনটা রং সেটা বলছেন না। কিন্তু ভিলেজ কোর্ট হ্যাজ দ্যাট পাওয়ার। ভিলেজ কোর্টে কিন্তু এই পাওয়ারটা আছে। কিন্তু ভিলেজ কোর্টের ইনফর্মাল জায়গা হচ্ছে যে আমরা যখন কোর্টে যাই তখন আমরা এভিডেন্স নিয়ে কথা বলি, আমরা প্রসিডিউরাল অ্যাসপেক্ট নিয়ে কথা বলি, সেখানে লয়াররা কথা বলে। ভিলেজ কোর্টে কিন্তু এটা নাই। ভিলেজ কোর্টের সুবিধা হচ্ছে ভিলেজ কোর্টে পার্টিজরা নিজেরাই কথা বলবেন, দে উইল রিপ্রেজেন্ট দেমসেলফ, অর্থাৎ এম্পাওয়ারিং দ্য পিপল, যেটা আমরা বললাম একটু আগে বিজয় স্যারের কথায় লেকচারে আমরা শুনলাম, সেই জায়গাটা আছে। তো এইখানে হচ্ছে মিডিয়েশনের সাথে ভিলেজ কোর্টের পার্থক্য হয়ে যাচ্ছে। ঠিক আছে, ওকে, ইয়া, থ্যাংক ইউ। আর কোনো প্রশ্ন প্লিজ?
এখানে আপনি বলেছেন যে কোর্ট সিস্টেমে মহিলারা ওমেন তারা ইন্টারেস্ট হারাচ্ছে, ফেস করতে পারছে না। তো সালিশ সিস্টেমে আমার মনে হয় আরো বেশি ডিপ্রাইভড হচ্ছে। যদি আমরা দেখি ওভারঅল যে সেখানে জাস্টিস বা রাইটসটা এনশিওর হলেও সালিশে কিন্তু হচ্ছেই না। তো সেখানে কিন্তু মহিলারা না, এখানে আমি যদি গার্ডিয়ান লেভেল থেকে ডিসিশনটা চাপিয়ে দেওয়া হচ্ছে, তো এখানে মহিলাদের ফেথ এই বিষয়টা কিভাবে এলো আমি আসলে বুঝতে পারলাম না।
এটা তো আসলে একটা গবেষণা রিপোর্ট। এই গবেষণায় যখন গবেষণাগুলো হয়, আপনারা যারা এমপিরিক্যাল রিসার্চ করার এক্সপেরিয়েন্স নিশ্চয়ই আপনাদের মধ্যে অনেকেরই আছে, তো আপনারা জানেন যে আপনারা স্যাম্পলিং করেন, আপনারা ইন্টারভিউ করেন, এরপরে কোন এজ গ্রুপ কোন জেন্ডার কতজন লাগবে সেভাবে ইন্টারভিউ করেন। এটা একটা গবেষণা রিপোর্ট বলছে যে women are now they are lacking interest towards sport। ঠিক আছে, বিশেষ করে ভিলেজ উইমেন। হ্যাঁ, আসছি আমি, এটা যেমন একটা বিষয়। আর আমি বলছি যে সালিশ ইজ নট এ প্যানাশিয়া, ইট ইজ নট এ প্যানাশিয়া, ইট হ্যাজ সাম ব্যাকড্রপস, সাম চ্যালেঞ্জেস অলসো। ঠিক আছে, কিন্তু সালিশে যেতে টাকা লাগে না, কোর্টে যেতে টাকা লাগে, সালিশে যেতে কোনো কষ্ট নাই, পাশের বাড়ি গেলেই সালিশ হয়, তাই না? কিন্তু কোর্টে যেতে গেলে আপনাকে অনেক দূরে যেতে হবে, আর কোর্ট যেতে গেলে আপনাকে লয়ারের কাছে যেতে হবে বা আপনার লিগাল এইড অফিসে যেতে হবে, তাও তো লিগাল এইডের কথা সবাই জানে না। সো দিস ক্যান বি দ্য রিজন যে কিছু কিছু ক্ষেত্রে, বিশেষ করে ইথনিক কমিউনিটি, আপনারা যদি ইথনিক কমিউনিটি যান, লেট মি গিভ ইউ মাই এক্সপিরিয়েন্স ওয়ার্কিং উইথ দলিতস অফ আওয়ার কান্ট্রি, যারা এই যে সুয়ারেজ পরিষ্কার করে আমাদের এখানে, স্ক্যাভেঞ্জার্স যারা আছে, বিশেষ করে হিন্দু দলিত জনগোষ্ঠী যারা আছে, এদের সাথে কিছুদিন কাজ করার সুযোগ হয়েছে আমার। ইনফ্যাক্ট আমি এখানে একটা মামলা দিয়েছি যে কিছু কিছু কমিউনিটি আছে যেখানে স্ট্রিক্ট রুলস আছে যে কমিউনিটি মেম্বার্স ক্যান নট গো আউটসাইড টু দ্য কমিউনিটি উইথ দেয়ার প্রবলেমস, তারা যেতে পারবে না। দলিতদের মধ্যে আমি কাজ করেছি, তাদের এখানে স্পেশাল নিয়ম আছে যে তাদের কমিউনিটির কোনো লোক পঞ্চায়েত প্রধান বা হেডম্যানের সাথে কথা না বলে কোনো মামলা কোর্টে দিতে পারবেন না। দে আর নট অ্যালাউড টু ডু দ্যাট। এটা কিন্তু তাদের স্ট্রিক্ট রুল। এটার দুইটা কারণ হতে পারে। একটা হচ্ছে তারা নিজেদের কমিউনিটিকে অনেক বেশি টাইট রাখতে চান, বাইরের কোনো সিদ্ধান্ত আমরা নিব না, আমরা আমাদের মতো করে চলবো, এটা একটা বিষয়। আর একটা হচ্ছে যে যেহেতু তারা ভালনারেবল গ্রুপ, এথনিক কমিউনিটির কথা বলছি আমি, ভালনারেবল গ্রুপ সেহেতু তারা আমাদের জাস্টিস সিস্টেমকে ভরসা করে না, এই কারণে তারা যেতে চায় না। প্লিজ।
সালিশের ক্ষেত্রে আমরা যেটা দেখি চান্স অফ পার্সিয়ালিটি, কারণ বিপক্ষে যে কেউ বিপক্ষে থাকলে এটা যারা থাকে না তাদের বিরুদ্ধে এটা যেতে পারে। সেই ক্ষেত্রে আমাদের কি করব? সেই ক্ষেত্রে এটা অলসো রেমেডিটা কি
করণীয়? এটা খুবই ডিফিকাল্ট একটা প্রশ্ন। করণীয় ধরেন আমি যেটা বললাম সেটা হচ্ছে যে ট্রেইনড সালিশকার বা ট্রেন মিডিয়েটর যদি থাকে কোন একটা ডিসপিউট রেজলিউশন জায়গায়, সেক্ষেত্রে সেটা একটা ভালো, ইট ক্যান অ্যাড অ্যানাদার লেয়ার টু দ্য এন্টায়ার জাস্টিস সিস্টেম। সে জানে যে কোন কাজটা আমি করতে পারবো, কোন কাজটা করতে পারবো না, মোরালিটির একটা বিষয় থাকে, ঠিক আছে? কিন্তু বাংলাদেশের যেমন আমি বললাম ভিলেজ কোর্ট বা সালিশ যেখানেই যান না কেন, পলিটিক্সের ইনফ্লুয়েন্সটা, যেমন আমাদের কোর্টে নিম্ন আদালত বা যেখানেই বলি না কেন আমরা আছে, এটা সালিশেও আছে, এটা ভিলেজ কোর্টেও আছে। এখান থেকে বের হয়ে আসার জন্য প্রশিক্ষণ, শিক্ষা, এটার কোনো বিকল্প নাই। আমরা যদি, আমার মনে হয় যে যারা ভিলেজ কোর্টে বসেন বা যারা গ্রামে সালিশ করেন, তাদেরকেও যদি ট্রেনিং এর আওতায় নিয়ে আসতে পারি, বা প্রত্যেকটা জায়গায় জেলায় জেলায় যদি মিডিয়েটর পাঠাতে পারি, প্রত্যেকটা অঞ্চলে অঞ্চলে, সেটাও একটা বড় পজিটিভ পরিবর্তন আনতে পারে বলে আমার মনে হয়।
আমরা তো জানি যে ভিলেজ কোর্টের আপনার কোর্ট হচ্ছে কি ম্যাজিস্ট্রেট অর সহকারী
না ভিলেজ কোর্টে না, ভিলেজ কোর্টের চেয়ারম্যান।
চেয়ারম্যান কিভাবে ট্রেন
হতে পারে চেয়ারম্যানদের ট্রেনিং দেওয়ার অনেক ব্যবস্থা আছে, চেয়ারম্যানরাও ট্রেনিং পায়। আপনি চেয়ারম্যানদের জন্য, নির্দিষ্ট এলাকার চেয়ারম্যানদের জন্য ট্রেনিং এর ব্যবস্থা করতে পারেন, গভর্নমেন্ট চাইলে করতে পারে, এবং তাদেরকে ট্রেনিং দেওয়া হয়, তারা ট্রেন হয়। ইউনিয়ন পরিষদের চেয়ারম্যান, উপজেলা চেয়ারম্যান, তাদের জন্য ট্রেনিং এর ব্যবস্থা আছে, সেটা হতে পারে। প্রত্যেকেই ট্রেনিং করা যায়, একদিনে হবে না। আমরা ট্রেনিং হচ্ছি না, লয়াররা ট্রেনিং হচ্ছে না, শিক্ষকরা ট্রেন হচ্ছে না, একদিনে তো হচ্ছে না। সেটার জন্য বিমস কত বছর ধরে কাজ করছে এবং আরো কত বছর কাজ করতে হবে সবাইকে এই বিষয়ে সেন্সিটাইজ করার জন্য, রাইট? সো ইট ইজ আ লং জার্নি।
এখানে যদি আপনার বিচারে যদি কোনো রকম হয় সেক্ষেত্রে তাদের কি দায়বদ্ধতা থাকবে যদি কোনো বিচারে
মিসক্যারেজ অফ জাস্টিস
প্রপারলি হলো না
এই যে সালিশকারীরা আছে, যে বললাম আমি, যে ধর্ষণের শাস্তি দেওয়া হচ্ছে 20,000 টাকা জরিমানা, এবং কোন কোন ক্ষেত্রে ধর্ষকের সাথে ধর্ষিতার বিচারের ব্যবস্থা করা হয়েছে, সরি বিয়ের ব্যবস্থা করা হয়েছে, রাইট? সো এই ক্ষেত্রে আমরা আসলে খুব বেশি কিছু তার বিরুদ্ধে করতে পারছি না, কারণ তারা উইলিংলি গিয়েছে। কিন্তু মামলা যদিও সালিশে সমাধান হলো, তার মানে কিন্তু এই না যে ভিকটিমের পরিবার পরবর্তীতে কোর্টে আসতে পারবে না। দে ক্যান কাম টু দ্য কোর্ট স্টিল। হতে পারে, হ্যাঁ, যদি সালিশি সমাধান না হয় তাহলে কোর্ট আসতে পারে, রাইট?
ভিলেজ কোর্টে এই ইনফর্মাল সেটআপটা কিভাবে দেওয়া যেতে পারে? ফর্মাল সেটআপটার পরিবর্তে ইনফর্মাল সেটআপে ইনফর্মাল ব্যবস্থা কিভাবে?
এটা নিয়ে আমি এখন আসলে চিন্তা করি না যে ভিলেজ কোর্টে কিভাবে, যদিও ফর্মাল ব্যবস্থা আছে, কিন্তু ইনফর্মাল এটা কিভাবে করা যায়, এটা নিয়ে আপনারাও ভাবতে পারেন। লেট আস অল থিংক অ্যাবাউট ইট এবং লেট আস কাম আপ উইথ সলিউশনস যে কিভাবে করা যেতে পারে, ঠিক আছে? কিন্তু এই বিষয়টা নিয়ে আমিও ভাবি না যে ভিলেজ কোর্টে কিভাবে এটাকে আরো বেশি ইনফর্মাল করা যেতে পারে। চেয়ারম্যান বায়াসড হতে পারে কোনো কমিউনিটির প্রতি, তাই না? চেয়ারম্যান নিজে মৌলবাদী হতে পারে, বা চেয়ারম্যান নিজে গোরা হিন্দু হতে পারে, অনেক কিছুই হতে পারে। তাহলে সেইটার পরিবর্তে কি করা যায় সেটা নিয়ে লেট আস থিংক অ্যাবাউট ইট। আমরা অন্যান্য দেশের মডেলগুলো দেখতে পারি, যে দেশে ভিলেজ কোর্টগুলো খুব সাকসেসফুলি কাজ করছে, সেই সমস্ত জায়গার মডেল দেখতে পারি, দেখে একটা কম্পারেটিভ স্টাডি করতে পারি যে কি হয়।
স্যার দালিক নিয়ে যে বললেন ওরা তো ডিরেক্ট মানে অবস্ট্রাক্টেড হচ্ছে মাঝখানে, তো এই জিনিসটা ওভারকাম কিভাবে করা যেতে পারে যেন ওনারা ডিরেক্ট অ্যাক্সেস টু জাস্টিস?
খুবই ডিফিকাল্ট, ওভারকাম করা খুবই ডিফিকাল্ট। আমরা যে গবেষণাটা করেছি 2013 সালে, এই গবেষণাটা মোটামুটি সব জায়গায় গিয়েছে, কিন্তু দলিতরা যে অবস্থায় ছিল তারা সে অবস্থায় আছে, তাদের অবস্থার কোনো পরিবর্তন হয়নি। দলিতরা নিজেরাই এখন পর্যন্ত তারা এমন একটা মাইন্ড সেট আপে, যতটুকু আমি কথা বলেছি, আছে যে তারা নিজেরা চায় না এটা। তারা নিজেরা এখন পর্যন্ত, আমি যতজনের সাথে কথা বলেছি, ইফ ইউ আর নট ওয়ান্ট, ইউ ডু নট ওয়ান্ট টু চেঞ্জ ইয়োরসেলফ, হু ক্যান চেঞ্জ ইউ, রাইট? এটা একটা সমস্যা হতে পারে, কিন্তু নিশ্চয়ই তাদেরকে, গভর্নমেন্টের একটা দায়িত্ব আছে, আমাদের সোশ্যাল ইনস্টিটিউশনগুলোর দায়িত্ব আছে যে এদেরকেও নিয়ে আসা। এবং ইনফ্যাক্ট ওখানে কাজ করতে গিয়ে তারা কি ধরনের বৈষম্যের শিকার হয় সেগুলো আমি দেখেছি। দলিত কমিউনিটির লোকজন তাদের নিজের যে সারনেম আছে, টাইটেল, সেই টাইটেল কোথাও বলে না। মনে করেন আমার নাম হচ্ছে অরূপ রতন সাহা, আমি অরূপ পর্যন্ত বলছি, এরপরে আর বলছি না। কারণ যখনই তার টাইটেলটা বোঝা যাবে বা প্রকাশ হবে, তখন বুঝতে পারবে মানুষজন সে দলিত। এরকম একজন আমার কাছে শেয়ার করেছে তার স্টোরি, সম্ভবত ঢাকা কলেজ থেকে পড়াশোনা করা একটা ছেলে, সে কোন একটা অফিসে কম্পিউটার অপারেটরের জন্য অ্যাপ্লাই করেছে, কিন্তু কম্পিউটার অপারেটরের জন্য অ্যাপ্লাই করলেও তাকে অফার করা হচ্ছে সুইপারের জব আফটার নোয়িং হিজ সারনেম। ঠিক আছে, যেহেতু সে গণকটুলি, আজিমপুরে আপনারা যারা ওইদিকে গিয়েছেন, ওই পাশে ঢাকা ইউনিভার্সিটির পাশে গণকটুলির বাসিন্দা, ওই পার্টিকুলার এলাকা, তার অ্যাড্রেস এবং তার সারনেম, তারা এটা দেখে বলছে যে আমার এখানে সুইপারের জব আছে, ইউ ক্যান ডু দ্যাট।
স্যার আরেকটু কোশ্চেন ছিল, সেটা হচ্ছে স্যার ইন্ডিয়াতে তো এই মানে দলিত নিয়ে এটা অনেকটাই প্রোগ্রেসিভ মানে হচ্ছে, কিন্তু বাংলাদেশে এদিক থেকে আই থিঙ্ক পিছিয়ে আছে, এবং এই ক্ষেত্রে মানে মেডিয়েশনের সাথে মানে ওদেরকে কিভাবে মানে এখানে মানে ইফেক্ট করা যায়, বা এটা দিয়ে ওরা কিভাবে বেনিফিটেড হতে পারে?
না, প্রথমত আমরা তো আসলে কথা বলছিলাম যে তাদের ট্র্যাডিশনাল জাস্টিস সিস্টেম নিয়ে। এই সমস্ত ইথনিক কমিউনিটি যারা আছে প্রত্যেকের আলাদা আলাদা কিছু ট্র্যাডিশনাল জাস্টিস সিস্টেম আছে, এবং সামটাইমস দিস সিস্টেমস আর ভেরি স্ট্রিক্ট। দে উইল নট অ্যালাউ ইউ টু কাম আউট ফ্রম দ্যাট সিস্টেম অ্যান্ড গো টু দ্য কোর্ট উইথ ইউর প্রবলেম। দে উইল নেভার অ্যালাউ ইউ। এবং যদি আপনি করেন সেটা, তাহলে আপনাকে সোশ্যালি আউটকাস্ট করে দেবে সে। এরকম হয়েছে। এবং এরপরে এই আউটকাস্ট হওয়ার সমাধান কি জানেন? সমাধান হচ্ছে যে আপনাকে দলিতদের যারা হেডম্যান আছে তাদেরকে খাসি কিনে বা ওই পাঠা কিনে খাওয়াতে হবে। অনেকদিন পরে, হয়তো বা 4 মাস 5 মাস বা 1 বছর আউটকাস্টেড থাকার পরে তারপরে এগুলো করে তাদেরকে তারপর আবার সমাজে ফিরতে হবে। তার আগ পর্যন্ত সমাজের কোনো সোশ্যাল গ্যাদারিং এ তারা পারফর্ম করতে পারবে। ঠিক আছে? সো এটা থেকে বের হয়ে আসার উপায়, শিক্ষার কোনো বিকল্প নাই। যে সমস্ত দলিত বাচ্চারা, ছেলে বা মেয়েরা তারা অনেক বেশি শিক্ষিত হয়েছে, তারা বাইরে এসেছে, ওই কমিউনিটিতে আর ফিরে যায় নাই। Somehow they have, I mean, they were successful to come out from that community. ঠিক আছে? But anyway, thank you very much, sir, for inviting me to have this discussion. See you all.